Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming to the October edition of the Health, Environment, Social Services Committee meeting for Community Board 2. My name is Brandon Smith. I'm the chair of the committee. Before we do introductions, I have a bit of a disclaimer that I have to read, which I read before every meeting. So let's commence with this. So we should note that the meeting has been called to order and recording may begin. This is being recorded for the purpose of transparency and for permanent public access on the CB2 YouTube archive. All attendees should keep your microphone muted when you are not speaking. District staff will actively assist in maintaining this protocol. It is the practice of Community Board 2 to conduct remote meetings with all committee members' cameras on for full transparency. We encourage all attendees to also leave their cameras on, particularly if you are given the floor to speak. To maintain appropriate discussion and voting process, I will make it known when and which topics are open for comment by committee members, board members at large, and the general public. If you wish to speak, please use the Webex feature in the participant panel to digitally raise and lower a hand, and I will call on you in order. If you have questions that fall outside of public comment time, please type your questions into the chat panel, and we will address them if relevant to the matter and as time permits. If any attendee experiences technical difficulties with the Webex software or features during the meeting, please consult help.webex.com. After the meeting, please reach out to the district office at bk02.cb.nyc.gov. It is our desire to provide access for all of our neighbors, regardless of physical ability or limitation. If you require any accommodation or assistance for full participation, please contact the district staff office 72 hours before any public meeting. We will now begin the formal roll call. So I'll ask each of the committee members to introduce themselves. Ms. Thurston, do you want to go first?
Hi, I'm Jessica Thurston. I'm the secretary.
Excellent. Mr. Varela?
Alejandro Varela, public member.
Great. Ms. McKnight?
Good evening, Nicole McKnight, public member.
I believe that's it.
Victor, do we have you on the phone? Thinking. No. Okay. Well, it's gonna take a little while before we get quorum for our meeting. So I'm gonna hold off on asking to approve the agenda. But we have a number of people in the audience, and I want to be considerate of our speakers who've come this evening. So I'm going to invite our speakers to kick off their presentation for the evening. Do we have Ms. Rosamund Fletcher from Fort Greene Conservancy? I see Ms. Fletcher, but she may be muted.
There we go, unmuting.
Excellent, thank you. Just to check in, do we also have Mr. Nicholas Becerra from the Fountain House?
We have Elliot Madison instead from Fountain House. He is
okay.
executive director. Yeah.
Okay, great, excellent, cool. So I'm not sure who to kick off with, but Ms. Fletcher, you're first on the agenda. Should we kick off with you?
Sure, we're all together. We're a team.
Great.
And Christina Sparrock is also here. I believe she's on the phone.
I'm here.
You're there. Great. Okay. So very quickly, we're just going to say a little bit about ourselves and then about a project that we're working on together. So my name is Rosamund Fletcher. I'm the executive director of the Fort Greene Park Conservancy. I started last year. I just for information, I have a sort of design and planning background, formerly with the Design Trust for Public Space and also the Center for Architecture. So I was very excited to have the opportunity to join the Fort Greene Park Conservancy. And in the year that I've been there, we've started some really exciting new things, which you'll hear about. Very quickly, if you don't know about us, we've been around for about 20 years, and our mission, which we've recently updated, is to preserve and nourish Fort Greene Park as a community resource and a public space for all New Yorkers for generations to come. And we do this through programming and through maintenance and through advocacy. I'll stop right there and just let Christina introduce herself and let Elliot introduce himself, and then we will tell you about this project we're working on.
So my name is Christina Sparrock. I'm the treasurer of Fort Greene Park Conservancy. I was born in Fort Greene houses a long time ago, moved to East New York, and I came back to Fort Greene and been here for the past 21 years. I'm a certified public accountant who lives with a mental health condition. And having a mental health condition, I never believed I was disabled, but an able person with a unique gift. You're going to hear more about our project, but I just want to give you a little background about my advocacy. In 2013, I was assaulted and I called 911. And a huge mistake I made was identifying myself as a person who lived with bipolar disorder. And so when the police arrived, they treated me as a victim, but they didn't treat me as a victim, but as a criminal, and like I was crazy. And from then on, I realized that people living with mental health conditions didn't have a voice or didn't have any rights. And that sparked my interest in mental health advocacy and training for CIT training for the police department and Department of Corrections. That's about it. Go ahead, Eli.
Hi, I'm Elliot Madison. I'm the Clubhouse Executive Director and Senior Director of Programs at Fountain House. We are a organization that works with folks with severe mental illness. We've been around for about 72 years. We're located in Manhattan in the Bronx, but our model, which we started, has spread in over 30 states and over 30 countries. The closest clubhouse to your community board, and I think it actually is in your community board, or very close, is the Brooklyn Clubhouse. So it's a sister clubhouse of ours. And our model works bringing together social practitioners, so staff that have been specifically trained to work in various environments, to really bring up the strengths in people, connect them to the services that they need to bring recovery. We believe in a recovery model of working with people. We've been doing that for 72 years in the city, and we're really excited to be part of this project because we think it's really in line with our mission of trying to work together with folks that need us the most.
So with that, what is this project? The project that we're working on is called the Person-Centered Intervention Training, or PCIT, Response Pilot at Fort Greene Park. So in partnership with Fountain House and also with New York City Parks, we want to assess the viability and the effectiveness of an alternative model to what currently is an enforcement-based response to people who are living with mental health illness in Fort Greene Park. So we want to look at something that is community-driven, non-enforcement based, and something that changes that redirects park users from what would otherwise be an NYPD referral to an array of health ecosystem resources. So whether that's wellness opportunities, jobs, or housing, these are all things that Fountain House does as part of their care management model. It's very important to the Fort Greene Park Conservancy. One of our values that we just reaffirmed is the value of belonging. So it's extremely important that all park users feel like that they have the right to be in public space, that they belong. especially those that have mental illness and those that have experienced trauma. So, as you know, Fort Greene Park is at the center of, I think, one of the greatest actual socioeconomic disparities in the city. There's such a wide difference in resources from one side of the park to the other. And, we know that mental illness does not discriminate, but we also know that the resources and services to support positive mental health are not equitably distributed. So we think that's important to provide a very direct connection to services and to also have better interactions in the park, one that are more based on empathy. So what are we going to do? We are saying we're going to embed a dedicated team of peer specialists and social practitioners. So peer specialists being those that are living with mental illness and because of that know much better how to interact with others who are also experiencing that, living with it. And so this team of social practitioners and peer specialists would function as sort of like trust agents in the park. And we'd have sort of different shifts. And they would work to proactively develop relationships with people in and around the park. And I say around because we need to look at the whole ecosystem of the neighborhood. We need to look at our neighbor, the Brooklyn Hospital Center. We need to look at the shelters, and we need to have sort of active connections, not just in the park, but on site with community partners. One other aspect of this is that, and Christina will go into this in a minute, is that the park enforcement patrol that we have would take what we call PCIT training, and she'll explain that, in order to be able to better understand why we're doing this and to be able to coordinate with this team of sort of on-site peer specialists. We would also, yeah, go ahead. Why don't you jump in?
Thanks. So I know we have a few minutes left. So currently now we rely on NYPD to address or respond to all these 911 calls. And NYPD is not equipped or capable to respond to all emergencies. They cannot respond to mental health calls. Mental health calls need to be responded by a public health response. Too many people too often are being killed by police, and it's not right. They need public health services. So we train the PEP officers, the park enforcement officers, on PCIT. We'll consolidate some of the training from CI, crisis intervention training, which was designed for NYPD, and we'll train them also with the peer-centered model, which peer specialists, where we learned about empathy, anti-racism, cultural competency, and de-escalation techniques. This combined model will actually bridge community relations. It will teach PEP officers how to better engage with people who are in crisis. And who knows, themselves, a lot of cops and officers do suffer from mental health themselves too. We're just looking for basically positive outcomes in the community when it relates to mental health.
And Elliot, I don't know if you just wanted to briefly share about Woodruff Park, and then we can take some questions.
Yeah, I would like, so Woodruff Park is the very large park in right downtown Atlanta, which for many years was perceived to be not a safe place to go because of what was perceived as homeless and mentally ill, and people with addiction issues were in the park. And we consulted with that group to embed social practitioners in there, and the results were quite staggering as far as the number of people that got homes, the number of people that got connected to addiction services and things like that. We're glad to share that with you. But what was really important out of that is that things that were seen, people that were seen as a problem, actually, what we've always believed at Fountain House, can be part of the solution. They need to be part of the solution. They actually add value to the park experience for the others. In Woodruff Park, the program takes place around a game kiosk. So they manage the game kiosk, give out chessboards and cornhole and ping pong paddles and stuff. But they added an amenity to the park, and that's kind of what we're talking about. Is not, we shouldn't look at people with mental health as a problem. We should look at it as lost potential, and they are our community. And by connecting them with resources, by creating services at work, they can actually add. It's not just taking care of a problem in the park, but can actually make the park better for families, for everybody that is using the park. And that's why we're really excited to be able to work on a similar model here in our own city. You know, we do have a clubhouse in Atlanta also, but it would be nice to work on a model and closer to home.
Yeah, and this model will, in addition to the social worker, would have the peer specialist aspect to it, which we're really very excited about. Just briefly on the status of this, we're in the process of exploring several very large grants to support this, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and some other, Van Ameringen Foundation and some others. So we're very hopeful that we'll be able to start this next year. We do have very high level approval of New York City parks for this. And so we really think it's just a matter of getting the funds, and then we're very excited to begin it. But as one piece of it that we didn't get into is that we do plan to have a community advisory council as part of it. So before any of this would get going, we would get, be reaching out, including to this group, to get people more involved in the project. And so that is definitely one of the next steps in the coming months. With that, I think we're available to take questions. I don't know how much time we have.
Well, we can certainly field some questions. Thank you very much for your presentation, and really, hats off to you all for the tremendous work that you're doing, because it's the issues that you've espoused are things that I think our committee is very concerned about as a whole. And I think, it's great to hear that there are alternative options out there. I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit more about the kinds of people who would actually engage in lieu of the police officers with someone who's mentally ill in the park. What kind of qualifications would they have? What kind of training? And how do we determine that these are the right people to go out and consult?
Yeah, Christina, I think, can field that one, right?
So I'm going to be training, since I'm certified in certified CIT training, which has been recently pulled from NYPD, because I know you put it in the link that they still have an active training. I can teach the PEP officers on how to engage with people in crisis. And second, I'm also a peer specialist. And so I know how to do escalation techniques and crisis communication skills. So I will also work with the peers as well, and peer specialists and social workers. And Fountain House is also a professional in that as well.
Yeah, so the people that will be working most directly with people that might be in crisis, or just people that need some extra services, are going to be state certified peer specialists and then social workers. The right people to really be working with people that are trying to manage with an illness. That's the right group of people that have historically gotten us the best results for connecting people on their track to recovery, I think.
Great, thank you. We've been joined by another member of the committee. Mr. Andrews, do you want to introduce yourself really quickly? Mr. Andrews may be having some connectivity issues. We can come back to him. Did any members of the committee have any questions for our presenters? Mr. Varela?
Hi, thank you. Thank you for this great presentation. And as Brandon said, this is something that we've been talking about here, about how we can support both something, mental health services, both something ubiquitous, but also mobile. And so this is kind of a great project. And I'm curious about what it will look like if it were to start. If it were fully funded, how many people do you see in the park working? How often? And yeah, start there.
At the moment, what we're budgeting for is having teams, so a peer specialist and a social worker working alongside each other, and having 2 shifts of those per day. So it's at the moment it's not envisioned as 24 hours, but it is envisioned as like 16 hours. I think depending upon funding, we could revisit that, but so it's meant to be every full time for both of those teams. So, but there would be 4 individuals that would be part of it. And then there would, of course, be Fort Greene Park actually has a dedicated park enforcement patrol, which is really good because in most places around the city, they're sort of roving. And so you never get to work with the same folks. And so that gives us a unique opportunity to train them. So we hope also that they will become active participants in the pilot.
And just to be clear, they would have access to the Fountain House kind of ecology of services. We have housing, we have a clinic with both behavioral and medical care. We have home and community-based services. We have care coordination. The participants of this project would have access to all that. So there'd be a lot of support for these 2 teams to do the work that they need to be doing.
Excellent, thank you. Any other questions from members of the committee?
Hi, this is Nicole McKnight. I have a couple of questions. So how will you identify the people who are in need of these services?
Well, how it works in Woodruff Park is that most people identify themselves. They have specific. They may not identify themselves because of stigma of having an addiction or having a mental health issue, but they're willing to identify themselves as wanting to be respected, needing some help maybe with whatever, a food stamps application or housing. Our idea is to create an environment around an amenity so that we can engage people to give back. So it's not just an outreach team waking people up on the side and saying, can I help you? We have a different model, which is we're working side by side with folks so that they can feel free to ask us for help. It's what I think Rosamund talked about. It's this concept of a trust agent.
But
And
also to add to that, sorry, Elliot, it's the fact that like studies show that 1 out of 4 people live with a mental health diagnosis. It could be severe or minor. In the times of COVID, when people have lost their jobs and losing their loved ones and on so much uncertainty, I mean, a lot of us, even on the phone, may be going through some trauma. And it doesn't have to be major, but you could be walking through the park, sitting on the bench, just crying because you just lost your job, or you're afraid because you have COVID, and you'll see a peer specialist and a consumer or a PEP officer come by and say, hey, what's going on? And can we help you? And then at that time, you may feel like with me, and you may feel like you may comfortable me and say, hey, Christina, I'm going through this. Do you want to talk? And I'll sit there and just listen to you. And that's all I would do. And I may say, do you want a cup of coffee? Because I'm trying to de-escalate it. I want you to feel well. I want you to feel safe. And even when in my building, there's a particular guy who gets drunk every day. He gets every payday and scares everybody in my building. But I've known him for 20 years. I'm not afraid of him. Police pick him up all the time. But you know what? I can de-escalate him because I know him well. I know how he thinks. And that's what it appears about, getting that connection, that relationship. Not being afraid of police. Police scare everyone. Who wants a police to come to anyone when they're in crisis? You need a human being, a non-uniform human being, just to talk to you and to listen to you.
just being there every day, you get to know the
Yeah, you
ecology,
do.
right? It's not coming once a week as part of an outreach van and then going off to another place and another. This would be the workspace. You get to know the people and they get to know you. And to be honest, at Woodruff Park, a lot of it is also referrals. Somebody in the park, can come and say, hey, I think somebody's really struggling on the other side of the park. Why don't you guys go check it out and see if you can help? People aren't afraid to come to the people working at the game cart, like they may be going up to a police officer or something like that. It's a different, it changes the dynamic immediately.
Does. Thank you. So my follow-up question to your answers then is, then how will people find out about the services that you're offering? Because they need to be aware of it to take advantage of it.
Well, we hope to have some materials out. We hope to introduce ourselves into the community, in the park community, in the neighboring park community, because it's not just the park community, right? It's not like, oh, you're on the other side of the street, we can't help you. That's not how this kind of works. But it takes time, to be honest. Trust is not something anybody kind of is entitled to. It's something that we would have to work on. And in having an amenity, having something that we're adding to the park, not just to the people in need, but to everybody, I think. We're also very gregarious, right, Christina? We like to talk.
So we're talking about, we're talking about
know.
how to connect this to the programming the Conservancy already does, how to connect it to the visitor center and some of the other places around the park that are very active. So how to, this is something that we also want to discuss with the community advisory group, is exactly, there's a sort of subtle balance about presence here. We don't want to come on too strong, and we don't want to be something that people want to walk away from because they see official shirts on you or something, but we also want to be open and communicate about the project. So that is one of the areas that I think we're still working on and would love to have some input, because it needs to be exactly right for this community.
Thank you very much for this. In the midst of this, we were joined by another committee member. Ms. Cobb, do you want to briefly introduce yourself? And you're on mute, Ms. Cobb.
Can you get
Okay, you're off mute. Off mute. There we go. Thanks.
I'm sorry. I'm a coach
I do-
Cobb and I'm a board member. Thank you.
Thank you. It's nice to see you, Ms. Cobb. Thank you.
Good to see you.
I think with this, I'll ask, do any other members of the committee have any questions for the presenters? Okay, I'm not seeing any. I did just want to ask you guys, what do you feel we can do as a committee to best help your mission? We're very interested in this subject.
Well, I think in particular, the sort of the end of this conversation about like how it, how we communicate out and how public this is, I think is something that we want to talk more about, both, how it shows up in the park, but also on, at different locations around the park through other programs and engagement opportunities. So that is an area we would really love to continue the conversation with you.
And I think the advisory board, we're hoping that some folks from here would be part of that
Yeah,
too.
definitely.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Just want to ask, because we do want to make everything available for the public, and we have several members of the public who may be here on other matters, or they may be here for this tonight. Were there any members of the public who had a question for these presenters about their presentation today? I just want to give it a minute or so, just so that I can make sure, because we are living in a digital world.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, from my point of view, I just want to add,
Oh.
we're presenting for something a little bit later, but it sounds like a fantastic initiative. And as a Greener for the past 7 years, Brooklyn for 11, I really look forward to seeing how we can support this.
Thank you. You're Jason Burrell?
I am
Great.
indeed.
Great. Thank you very much for your comment, sir. That's most welcome. Okay. I'm not seeing. I think here's a question. How do we reach you to talk about local partnerships?
I'll put my email in the chat. It's rosamund@fortgreenpark.org.
Great. Excellent. Well, thank you all very much for your presentation this evening. We greatly enjoyed it, and we'll look forward to seeing and hearing more about your group in the future.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Great. Have a nice evening. All right. Well, we're going to move along to our next point, and we're actually going to take it back a step. I'm going to ask, is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda? We do have quorum.
So moved.
Motion by Jessica. Do we have a second? I see a second by Akasa. All in favor with the amendment of doing the presentation first, as we just did? Okay. Mr. Varela is in favor, and I'm in favor, and Ms. Cobb is in favor too, and Ms. McKnight is in favor. Great, excellent, thank you. All right, we'll proceed with our next agenda item for the evening. I want to ask Ms. Church to introduce herself too. I'm sorry I didn't introduce you earlier, Carol Ann, but you are an important member of our committee, so I'd like for you to introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. Carol Ann Church, Assistant District Manager for CB2.
Thank you. So on tonight's agenda, we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 new full on-premise liquor licenses to go through. The first one on the agenda is 224 Greene Avenue, Café Bar Laika. Do we have a representative here from this organization?
I was representing them, but we adjourned the hearing until next month. I'm just here on another matter.
Okay, I've got the message from the board office that that's the case, so we'll mark that as moved over for next month.
Okay, thank you.
Next on the agenda, we've got 306 Gold Street, entity to be determined.
Hi, good evening.
Who is that, Mr. Kelly?
That is me, Jake Christopher, and then the proposed owner is Manuel Santos.
Oh, okay. I see Manuel. Okay, great.
Okay, so my screen should be coming up for you, and let me know if it doesn't.
No, I can see it. I can see it.
Right. And I think maybe it might be helpful to make it a little bit bigger for you. Is this fine with everyone?
It's okay for me.
Okay. So just to give you a little bit of background before I introduce Manuel to talk a little bit more, my name is Jake Trissler from Heilbronn and Levy. It's good to see all of you. It feels like it's been forever in this strange new world that we're in. But 306 Gold Street has been operating with an on-premise liquor license since 2016. The two owners of this license have decided to close their business. They've actually sold their business to the applicant, Manuel Santos. as part of an asset purchase agreement. The asset purchase agreement did not include the liquor license. So now we are here to obtain a new liquor license. It's the exact same company, it's the same menu, same operations. It's just a brand new liquor license. And Mr. Santisteban was actually the chef and manager previously. So now he's taking over a larger role. Just before we go through the application or the packet, just a few things to point out for everyone. It's a small Peruvian restaurant with 20 tables, 40 seats, and 10 bar seats. The operating hours are Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 12 a.m. It's recorded background music only with no outdoor space. There are 3 other OP licenses within 500 feet, 1 restaurant, 1 hotel, and 1 tavern. Tavern bar. So let me know, if I can go page by page and kind of point things out to you. What would you like to see within the actual application and packet?
So I think if you can just circle down to the hours, that's usually a good thing for us to see.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can just take a look at that. So it looks like you're going to be open until 10 o'clock during the week, 12 o'clock on Friday, Saturday, and you have no outdoor areas, background music only.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
So you can see we're at 20 indoor tables, 40 seats, 10 bar seats. It's relatively small at 1,200 feet for customer service area, 1,600 feet altogether. As you said previously, no outdoor areas. And again, this was a licensed premise since 2016. Its former iteration has closed. Again, it's the same concept, same menu, pretty much is exactly the same, even the same furniture inside. It's just kind of been passed down to Mr. Santisteban now. And Manuel, if you would like, you can unmute yourself and just, say hi and say, what your plans are for the space and what your experience has been working at the location previously. Manny, can you hear us? Okay, I don't know, maybe he's having some technical difficulties, but for those of you who might not be familiar, the restaurant sits in between the intersection of Johnson Street and Tillary Street. There's another 500-foot map you can look at. So there are some OP licenses. There's tavern wine licenses, a few liquor stores, and a grocery store license as well. This is a 500-foot report detailing what those licenses are. No churches or schools within 500 feet. This is the Peruvian menu for you just to browse. There's quite an extensive selection of ceviches.
Did you say that the new owner was with the business previously, or
he was? Yeah, so he was the chef and
oh, great.
he was the manager of the space.
Great.
Mm-hmm. And I apologize. I'm not sure. I think maybe he's just having some problems connecting the audio for you.
It's okay. It happens to everybody in this age, so it makes sense. Are you all aware of any complaints or concerns expressed by neighbors or any residents about the existing restaurant, noise, anything like that?
No. I did a little bit of research. I couldn't come up with anything. If there are, I'm more than welcome to take a look at that and address any concerns anyone has. But I'm not aware of any, and I don't believe that Manuel is either.
Okay.
So some interior photos for you.
Questions from members of the committee? Mr. Varela, yes, I see you.
Hi. I see on the application that you expect to employ or you currently employ, or I don't know if it's, maybe you can tell us, will you be hiring 10 to 15 new people, or that is just who currently works there and will continue to work there?
It's going to be a mix, most likely of both. So this restaurant did close right when COVID started happening. So it will probably be a mix. Some employees might not be returning, but there will definitely be probably a few new hires at least, probably five to seven new hires, possibly more that will be incurring within the few months.
Okay. Well, this is what I'm about to say has no bearing on the application, whether it's approved or not. It's just a sort of kind of a community reminder that we, in addition to the recession that we're about to experience or that we've already begun to experience, there are pockets of high unemployment within CB2. It would be great to see some of those jobs go to the communities that most need them, and specifically to brown and black employees, not just in the kitchen and front of house. So I highly encourage you to communicate this to the applicant, if you would.
Yeah, I would love to. I'm, one of the reasons I love to come to the CB2 meetings, and even if I just see the recordings, as I'm also a resident of CB2, I love to know what's happening, and hopefully we can all, impact change in a positive way within our own communities. And I know that that's a big, important factor for Mr. Sentis then as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Varela. Any other questions from members of the committee? Okay. Trying to scroll through everybody. I don't see any other questions from members of the committee. Members of the public, are there any questions from members of the public for this application? If you could use the raise your hand feature in Webex. Okay. I have received a report of no hands, and I see no hands. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
For the committee, is there a motion regarding this application?
Motion to approve.
Ms. Thurston moves to approve. Is there a second? Second from Ms. Cobb.
Second.
Discussion on the motion.
Did you hear me?
We heard that you seconded it.
Yes. Was there any discussion on the motion? Okay. I'll call everybody by name. Ms. Thurston?
Approve.
Mr. Varela?
Approved.
Ms. Cobb? Ms. Cobb, if you want to nod, I can. It looks like you're approving.
Or thumbs up. Okay.
There you go.
We got you.
Ms. McKnight.
Approve.
Okay. And I vote to approve as well too. So unanimous. Thank you very much.
And Mr. Andrews.
Oh, Mr. Andrews, are you on the line?
What? Yeah.
Mr. Andrews, go ahead and speak. You're unmuted.
Oh, yes, I vote for that, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Next up, we've got 45 Main Street, Evil Twin. I see Mr. Gargulo is raising your hand.
Yes, that's me. Sorry about that.
No worries. We're happy to have you. Are you the only one we have for this application?
I'm the only one we have for the application.
That's fine. That's fine.
All right, let me do. Having trouble sharing content right now. Anyway, so I'm representing Evil Twin Brewing. Evil Twin Brewing is a brewery that started in 2009 doing Gypsy Brew, family-owned business owned by Jeppe and Maria Jarnet Bjergso, who are from Denmark. They moved to the States in 2009 doing Gypsy Brewing, so they haven't had production space of their own until recently in 2018 when we began the build out on our 1616 George Street Ridgewood location, which is a 10,000 square foot brewing facility and office, as well as about a 4,000 square foot courtyard, which also houses our tap room.
Mr. Gargiulo?
Yes.
You should be able to share content now. Go ahead and select share in the upper left-hand corner.
Got it.
While we're waiting for Mr. Gargolo, I understand Mr. Harrison has joined for the evening, so if
Yeah,
you want
hello, how are you? Sorry,
Mr. Harrison
Infinitely.
sorry to hear about the bus, Mr. Harrison, but we're happy to have you this evening. Mr. Gargulo, if you want to jump back into the presentation.
All right, sorry about that. So we are proposing to open what's called a branch office, which is effectively another tap room. Our New York State brewer's license allows us to open 5 locations or branch offices under that, and we have selected Dumbo and 45 Main Street as that location. You can see the LAMP report in front of you. No churches or school within 500 feet. A handful of liquor stores, and within 750 feet, looks like about 10 other liquor licenses.
Mr. Gargiulo, could you zoom in on your screen a bit, please?
Yes.
Thanks so much. Okay, much better. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. So there's our LAMP report there. If we go to the application, we will talk about proposed hours for this new business. Alcohol service hours, Monday through Thursday, 12 p.m. to 12 a.m., Friday, Saturday, excuse me, extending to 2 a.m. potentially. Music will be all background. No outdoor seating. The numbers for the occupancy have changed since we've gotten an architect in there. So our total occupancy is actually going to be below 75. And I have here an updated version of the new floor plan. So bench seating, bar of about 20, and some other bench seating there as well. And that's pretty much it. I'll leave it up for questions.
When do you plan to open? Did you say that?
We did not plan to open. Hopefully, we're looking at first quarter 2021 at this point in the process. And because of the limited amount of construction that we're going to do on the space, the liquor license will be the driving force in that timeline.
Great, thanks.
Other questions from the committee? Mr. Varela?
2 things. One, can you talk a little bit about, and I apologize if you just said this, but I was trying to read as you were talking. Can you speak a little bit to the resident situation there? Is the building commercial?
Yeah, of course. It is a office building. So it's 12 floors, all office occupants, and then retail on the ground level.
Are you adjacent to, or do you face a resident building? Do you have is there any outdoor space that will be utilized that faces a resident building?
We're not going to be using any outdoor space currently. We're directly facing the street on Main Street. I believe there is a residence across the street from us, kind of catty corner. I'm sorry, did I miss one part of your question?
No, but that does lead me to 1.5. It's just, do you get, when you were collecting signatures, did you get any from the nearby residents? Did you get any pushback from any of the nearby residents?
We did not collect signatures from that specific building. A lot of that had to do with, at the time of starting the application, was the beginning of COVID and not having a lot of access to the space in general. We do be part of our, we do have a resident here in the, as a letter of support from around the corner. But to our knowledge, we haven't had any pushback or protest to our business.
And then my second question is really more of a comment. It's essentially what I said to the previous applicant about local hiring. How many people do you expect to employ?
We're looking to employ probably about 15 people at this location, give or take. And to follow up on that, there will be some crossover from our current business, but that's going to be limited. We're looking to hire new for this space.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from members of the committee? Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions from the committee. Any questions from the members of the community who are here tonight for this application, 45 Main Street? You can use the raise your hand feature in Webex to indicate that you want to ask a question if you do. Okay. I see we have someone who would like to ask a question. Miss Wedderburn, do you have a question?
I'm so sorry. I thought I put down my hand. I did not mean to raise it. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. It's equally fine to have a question or not have a question. With that, I'm going to close off the time for public questions and ask the committee, do we have a motion for this application?
To approve.
Mr. Varela, do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Thurston. Discussion on the motion. Okay, hearing no discussion, I'll get everybody's vote now. Mr. Varela, how do you vote?
Approve.
Ms. McKnight?
Approve.
Ms. Cobb?
Yes, approve.
Mr. Andrews? Mr. Andrews, do we have your vote?
Mr. Andrews,
Hold on.
you can go ahead
Yeah,
and speak. You're unmuted.
Yes, yes.
Yes, he
I
said
take the
yes.
vote. Go ahead, yes.
Thanks,
Okay.
Victor.
Ms. Thurston
Approve.
and Mr. Harrison.
Yeah.
I
Tom,
don't
how do
see,
you vote? Did he?
I don't see an audio next to his name,
Okay.
so we may have to put him down for an abstain.
Okay.
I vote to approve. So thank you all very much for your presentation. All right. The next one on the agenda was 57 Front, but I understand they are laid over until next month, so we get to move on. 87 Lafayette Avenue. I don't have a name for this application, but happy to hear from anyone. Anyone here from 87 Lafayette? Okay. Not seeing anyone here from 87 Lafayette. We can try coming back to them when we're all done with these, but 71 Lafayette, the Brooklyn Hospitality Partners. Do we have anybody here from that application?
Hey, Brandon, before that goes, I mean, it doesn't change probably, but I see the applicant for the previous one. They're just muted.
Oh, okay, okay,
I think it's Isaac Antwi.
okay.
That matches the name on the application.
Mr. Antwi, go ahead and speak. You're unmuted.
Hi, my presenter is online. His name is Belli.
Okay, you can go ahead.
Virgo Lee, yes, I see this person. Mr. Lee?
Mr. Lee, you can go ahead and speak. You're also unmuted. Mr. Lee, if you're calling in a cell phone in addition to online, you'll need to unmute your cell phone.
Perhaps we could come back.
Yeah, I think we should probably
maybe,
move on, and we can circle back to this one. We're just go through the next ones who are here, and we can connect with, and we'll come right back to this. 71 Lafayette, Brooklyn Hospitality Partners. We have someone here from that.
Yeah, you have myself, Jason Burrell, representing for Brooklyn Hospitality Partners, and you also have my partner Ty Lee, and we have a third who's actually taking care of our other space, our sister space, Enswell, which is in the same neighborhood tonight. So it's the three of us. There's always one of us there. So I'll start sharing, and then we can go through it quickly. Let me know when everybody can see my screen. Here we go. So I will give everybody a little bit kind of an overview. So there's myself and Ty. We've been partners over at Enswell on Fulton Street, just around the corner of 71 Lafayette, for the past 18 months. Very interesting for the past 6 months, to say the very least. But we're doing well. We're open. We have probably 75% of our staff back full time, all people that we employed before COVID. So that's great to hear. The space that I'm going to be speaking about now has continually had a license for the past 15 years at the very least. It was known as Mullane's before. It actually dates back as a pub to 1933. So it has been there open operating for a number of years, kind of a pinnacle of the neighborhood. The space, again, came to our possession. Unfortunately, previous owner had some health complications, and then COVID hit, and he no longer had kind of the interest in running it, and moved to Florida. As for kind of the changes, we're making very much cosmetic changes and just modernizing the menu, similar to what we did with Enswell when we took over that space. Again, a lot of beautification going into the space, but nothing structural going to be happening. There's been no adverse history with the space whatsoever. It has strong connections to the neighborhood. And we want to continue that. When we speak about our space, we've done a number of different events. We had a fundraiser for BAM before the close down. We had it was their holiday fundraiser party. Ty also, we use the space. He volunteers with a group called Code Nation that takes tech professionals and places them in under-resourced high schools to teach technical skills. And we also work very closely with Fab Fulton, the business administration, and Christina Chavez to really elevate kind of the neighborhood overall and really help out businesses, particularly during this really trying time. And you'll see that we do have a letter of support from her as well. So that being said, I can go through some of the hours before we get into the concept. So the hours that we're looking for are 11 a.m. to 4 a.m., which again, that is exactly in line with what they had previously. So nothing has changed. We do have a provision to do some earlier events, say if it were things like the Olympics or the Rugby Six Nations competition, or if it was a Premier League event. There are a number of places that would do this as well, namely, apologies, the Douglas or the Chip Shop, both unfortunately have closed. So we're very much looking forward to kind of filling that gap and that need. And when we talk about live events, the live events would be maybe a jazz band for brunch or a trio playing traditional Irish music for St. Patrick's Day. So that's kind of what we're talking about for there. As far as seating and outdoor space, let me just scroll down and get to that. Oh, that's the layout. Seating and outdoor. I may have scrolled right past it. And apologies. There we go. Here we go. So again, we're doing no structural changes. We're keeping the layout as is. Indoor tables, we have 28, 56 seats. We have bar seats, 16. Now outdoor tables, we do have private property in front, which is on the property line, and we do have a patio to the side as well. So we're looking at 18 tables, 36 seats. The private patio space to the side, that's 10 tables, 20 seats. And luckily enough, with open restaurants, we do have space because we're on the corner and there is no bus lane. We do have room for 15 tables and 30 seats. And I can give you kind of a look at the layout here. Apologies for kind of the formatting. So we're going from the front to the back. So we have, that is the open restaurant seating. We have a large sidewalk. Then we have our private space right here. Then we move through to our indoor space. To the right, you have the patio seating, and to the far right, you have the outdoor restaurant seating. Directly next to us is 40 Acres and a Mule as well, Spike Lee Studio, which is great, and we've already spoken with them, and we've heard a lot of enthusiasm from them as well. Because as you can imagine, Spike is excited for some sports to get back to the neighborhood. That being said, I can go through kind of our concept. Again, our name is Fancy Free, and we are a traditional pub. So we are really looking to bring back that feel of the contemporary and classic pub culture. For anybody who knows us, anybody who has been to Enswell, we really pride ourselves on having top-notch service. So if you've ever seen our reviews, again, we have 4.7 on Google, and I think we're 4.7 or 4.5 on Yelp right now. And we have glowing reviews about how accessible our service is and how just kind of lovely our staff are. And we very much pride ourselves on that. So not only, again, are we looking to provide the best fare in the neighborhood, but we want to have the best experience as well. A little bit about the redesign. I know we're talking about being very culturally diverse. I will say for our business currently, we're very happy to be very culturally diverse. Not only when it comes to ethnicity, but also with LGBTQ as well. So very much we are kind of minority minded, and we make sure that we are inclusive of the neighborhood. And when we say neighborhood, representing everyone in the neighborhood. We can get down to the sample menu. Again, we're going to be very kind of cocktail centric here. At Enswell, we have kind of a French twist on things. Here, we're going to go a lot with kind of staples and twists on, and riffs, I should say, on classics. I think we're lucky enough, our third partner, who's our general manager at Enswell, is probably one of the best mixologists, I would say, in the city. And he's come up with kind of a new bar program that's really going to, I think, drive traffic to not just us, but hopefully to the neighborhood overall, because I think all ships will kind of rise. As far as the food menu, I think the most interesting thing about a pub is how versatile it can be. So we want to make sure that we do have kind of the staples, of course, mac and cheese, fried chicken sandwich, things like that, fish and chips. But a pub is able to kind of incorporate a lot of things and soak in a lot of things in the culture surrounding it. So that's why you see a lot in British pubs. You'll see a lot of Indian food and curries and things like that. Here in the US, you'll see a lot of nachos and kind of that Mexican influence as well. So we want to make sure that we're bringing that all in. We're looking at a chef right now and speaking with a chef who's local in Fort Greene as well, who has a Caribbean background. So bringing in that kind of a Caribbean element as well. So kind of a good melting pot, but with that kind of party pub feel throughout. A bit about ourselves. First generation American, so American Canadian. I came here from Montreal. I originally, I've lived a little bit all over. So I bartended and lived in London. I bartended and lived in Paris at one time. I co-owned a space in Montreal, which I sold before I moved to New York, which again, been here for 11 years, loving it, 7 years in Fort Greene. And I co-own this space with my partner from Enswell. So Ty, I'm not sure if you want to chime in, because I know I'm not monopolizing a lot of the time here, but if you want to chime in and talk about yourself a little bit.
Yeah, so I've been here. My name is Ty. I'm the other partner of Enswell and one of the partners of Brooklyn Hospitality. And yeah, I've been in New York now for about 11 years. My name is Ty, but I'm actually Vietnamese. My mom gave birth to me in Thailand. That's why my name is Ty. So I'm from Thailand. And so I came over to this country and Enswell is one of my first bars, partnering up with Jason, learned a lot from the business, but my specialty is definitely systems, operations, and that's what kind of brings to the table. And we're hoping to bring that kind of efficiency to the new space too.
Mm-hmm. Great, thanks so much, Ty. And then I'll be speaking on behalf of our other partner, Daniel, who's helming the bar tonight. So as you can see, there's always one of us there, so we rarely actually see each other. But that being said, so Daniel is going to be our partner general manager over at the new space. Daniel comes with a wealth of knowledge in mixology. He started as operations manager on this creme brulee cart, which he grew from 1 cart to, I believe it was a fleet of 12 at one point. He bartended in San Francisco, which led him to New York to really be at the center of everything when it comes to mixology. And he luckily came to us as a beverage director. So for the past 18 months, he's been beverage director over at Enswell. Been doing so phenomenally so that we decided to bring him in as a partner over at our new space, Fancy Free. So just logistics I can go into, but I think at this point, other than that, I can go through the petition. We did, luckily, with all the regulars that we have, we were able to collect 40 signatures. People were just really...
Could you move on from the signatures? It's great that you're able to get the signatures. It's just we don't want to put the signature. We don't want to put all these addresses up on our
Sure,
our
absolutely.
video. Thanks.
Absolutely. So we have 40 signatures, and then on top of that, we got a letter of recommendation from Fab Fulton today. And that...
So I greatly appreciate your presentation. I think, the committee may have some questions here. The one thing I just want to touch on first is particularly the 4 a.m. closing time and the outdoor space. The outdoor space, Mullane's looked like it had this it looks like kind of like a sidewalk cafe or something like that in front of the location. Is that the outdoor space that you're using? And what kind of contact have you had with the upstairs neighbors about this?
Yeah, that's it's the exact same outdoor space that we're using that Mullane's had, was that space out front. I've been able to get in contact with a lot of the neighbors around the space, which you'll see from the petition. Again, most of the people on the petition are within if they're not on the block, they're within like a 2 to 3 block radius of there. And everybody's been really enthusiastic. I did go to knock. It's either, and I can contact the landlord again, it's either vacant or somebody has left town for now. So I didn't get any response when I went by, unfortunately. The only neighbors that I did have contact with were over from 40 Acres, which is Spike Lee's studio. And they're all very enthusiastic about having the space open again. So that was kind of the reaction of that. As far as the 4 a.m. license, again, there are a number. We have a 4 a.m. license currently at Enswell. There is a 4 a.m. license with Moe's, which is probably about 200 feet from us. And there was, I believe, a 4 a.m. license at Frank's before it closed down, which is just prior to COVID.
Okay, and is your intent to really play live music until 3:30 a.m.? Because that seems to be the what's written there on the license.
Yeah, not at all. No, that is strictly for brunch purposes. So it's not an evening thing. We'd also be closing the outdoor space at 11:30, maybe doing last call 11:30, and having everybody closed by midnight. Because again, we're not looking. I live in the neighborhood. Most of our staff live in the neighborhood, and we're not looking to be a disruption. Again, with Enswell, we have a 4 a.m. license. We have no complaints. And if we did have any, we would make sure to address them. Again, the music is more of a early brunch thing and for special occasions.
I'm going to ask for questions from members of the committee. I see Ms. Cobb has a question. I'd like to give her the floor.
Yes. Could you put your times up again? 3:30
Yeah,
seems.
absolutely.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can definitely hear you.
Yeah.
I think you said bring the times up again.
3:30, is that 4 a.m.?
Yeah.
And serving alcohol until 3:30 a.m.?
Yes, that is. And again, that's in line with what they had previously. I'm not saying, again, that we are going to stay open every night until 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. It's just we want to have the ability to, if we do have an event or whatnot, especially with the fact of the income that everybody's losing currently this year and with the uncertainty of next year. We want to make sure that we have as many available hours to us to make profitable as possible. And that's for ourselves and for staff. I know there was a question earlier about how many people we would employ. We currently have 9 people at Answell. This space, from speaking with the landlord this morning, at one time did have 35 employees. So that'd be 35 employees from the neighborhood. So yeah, so again, the 4 a.m. license is just in line with what they previously had.
Ms. Church, have we received any complaints as the community board about Mullane's over the past few years or recently?
No, we've never had anything come into the board.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful to know. Any other questions from members of the committee? Again, just raise your hand. I'm trying to scroll through to be able to see you. Okay, I am not seeing any other questions from members of the committee. Members of the public, are there any questions for this application? 71 Lafayette. If you can use the raise your hand feature in Webex, that would be great. And I do not see any hands raised for this application. Okay, thank you all very much for your presentation. To the committee, does anyone wish to raise a motion at this time?
Make a motion to approve.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second it.
Second from Ms. Cobb. Discussion on the motion. Mr. Varela?
So, hi, thanks. I don't have, because I'm aware that Mullane's operated with those hours and there were no complaints, I don't have concerns about indoor being open until 4, only because in the past we have had a sort of an internal policy around outdoor cafes. This is a commercial corridor. It's not the same as a backyard into a donut of a block. But 11:30 was the closing hour for outdoor every night. Is that correct?
We do currently have it for outdoor till midnight, so starting at 11 a.m. till midnight, but we would most likely do last call 11:30 and get everything closed out by midnight.
Okay, so historically, someone in the board, correct me if I'm wrong, what we have done with sidewalk cafes has been 11 on weekends, 10 on weekdays. Now, I think that in light of COVID is probably kind of a tricky situation, right? I don't know what, in fact, we are doing in that case because it's not, the outdoor space is essentially the moneymaker. And so I want to be respectful to that. But Carol Ann, I don't know if you have guidance on how to proceed with this. Do we, I mean, once we approve this, it's essentially the liquor license you have, you know, it's like, you know, the jaws of life to change that. So I want to make sure that we wouldn't approve something in light of COVID that then becomes kind of a neighborhood nuisance over the long term that we can do very little about. You see what I mean?
Yeah, for myself, I mean, I believe that's completely valid, and definitely, again, from being somebody that lives in the neighborhood and knowing how things can affect those, living, not just doing business. So definitely, respectfully, so we can make sure that if anything, if it ever was getting too loud, we would just, as residents, make sure that we start closing earlier. I think for us right now, like we have our extended hours, I believe with city ordinance is till midnight for outdoor dining. That's just because, again, even with indoor dining beginning on Wednesday, I could say when I was there Thursday, we had 3 people. So really that's the outdoor dining, why we're trying to kind of make it as kind of robust as possible. Because even when the city allows people to come back in, as we've seen this week, they don't. So we'll still do very well outside, and by very well, I mean we are surviving, and we will survive it. But the fact is, because something's allowed, doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have that customer confidence for them coming back. So that's kind of why we want to make sure that we have that ability to serve outside, in case people even coming back next year in March still don't feel comfortable going inside.
Okay. Ms. Church informs me that that the city is allowing 11 p.m. outside. I don't know. Was there anything more you wanted to say on that, Ms. Church? Okay. Well, Alejandro, what do you think is? Do you feel like there's a view that you want to espouse about this? Like, hearing all of this, do you think that we should have an earlier closing time on the outside?
Frankly, no. But again, specifically because of the circumstances that we're living under right now. If we were in perfect times, I would ask that we do 11:30 and 10:30, or 11, 12, 11 and midnight. And again, because this is a commercial corridor and not the backyard into a residential block, I see there is a distinction. Historically, we've made a distinction. But no, I don't want to in this moment do that. I just don't. I wasn't sure if we had.
Okay.
No. Yeah. Okay.
I get what you're saying. Was there any other discussion from the committee? Okay. Hearing none, I'm gonna call everybody out. Mr. Varela, how do you vote?
Move to approve.
Ms. Thurston?
Approve.
Ms. McKnight?
Approve.
Ms. Cobb?
Approve.
Okay. And Mr. Andrews?
Second.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Andrews.
Second.
Victor, do you approve?
Yes, I approve. Yes.
Okay.
Great. I also vote to approve. Thank you very
What about
much.
John Harrison?
Mr. Harrison has dropped off the line. When he gets his audio back, he'll be back in the meeting, but we have to treat it as if he has left the room. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. I really appreciate your time today, and I appreciate that so many new applications are going in. So thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I am told that Virgo Lee is back on the line. Mr. Lee, do you want to proceed regarding 87 Lafayette? Mr. Lee.
Mr. Lee, you're muted. Mr. Lee, you are unmuted, but we are not able to hear you.
Can you hear me by my cell phone?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. So I'm here representing Mr. Isaac Antwi.
Go ahead. We have your PDF.
All right, I'll have to, I lost my audio, my video, so I'll try to verbally walk you through the application. Mr. And we had been in discussions with the previous owner, JTHA Group, and Harry Ackas has been the managing member of that company and had a on-premises liquor license in 2016. Mr. And we had been in discussions with Mr. Ackas for almost a year in the proposed purchase of the restaurant known as The Quarter. And on August 31st of this year, he completed the asset purchase agreement with Mr. Ackas and the shareholders. And then and that agreement did not include the liquor license, and he is now in the process of applying for his own liquor license. A copy of the completed questionnaire was sent to the community board, which I assume everyone or the members have a copy of. And the hours of operation presently are the following. It's open 5 days a week from Wednesday through Sunday, and then the restaurant is closed on Mondays and Tuesdays. The hours of operation on 4 out of the 5 days are 4 p.m. through 11 p.m., which is essentially dinner service only. And on the Saturdays, excuse me here for a moment. Yeah, the only difference on the hours of operation would be on Saturdays and Sundays. It's open a little bit earlier, which would be 11 a.m. for brunch service, and then, of course, closing at 10 p.m. This is Mr. Antwee's first restaurant investment. He's been an aspiring chef for almost 10 years. His cuisines that he specializes in happens to be Mediterranean and American. And the menu is going to stay the same. The Quarters menu essentially consists of classic American dishes, including things like spaghetti and meatballs, to your cavatelli pasta, gnocchi, with a Mediterranean twist. And these are the kinds of dishes which Mr. Antwee fell in love with and has learned through his many years of trying to find the right match for his opening project. And he ended up finding The Quarter and took almost a year to negotiate the agreement. His partner, his fiance, is a banker by profession, and she will be the bookkeeper for the business, while Mr. Antwee focuses on the kitchen and the dining room operation. The restaurant itself is not a huge restaurant. It consists of 39 seats in what is called the basement level or ground level. There are there is one stand-up bar with 8 stools, and there is a backyard area which consists of 7 tables and 15 seats. So roughly on the main dining room, you have half of the seating and tables and chairs, and in the backyard, which is part of the property, the remaining 7 tables and 15 chairs. And then, as I said, with the bar, you have an additional 8 seats. The kitchen is in the cellar level, and that's where all your storage of your food products as well as your alcohol will take place. Other than that, that's pretty much it. During the period of the pandemic, Mr. Antwee has decided to kind of have a manageable schedule where he could learn the operations of the restaurant. The seller, Harry Ackas, has agreed as part of the contract to train Mr. Antwee in the operations that includes relationships with all the existing vendors. All of the staff, including the kitchen staff, as well as the wait staff in the dining room, will stay on. and the restaurant is operating now. Isaac can speak to some of the things that he's done during the first month of training. And that is pretty much the extent of the proposal.
The hours for the backyard are going to be the same as the hours for the inside?
That is correct, because the backyard is actually an enclosed space, meaning that there's kind of like a cloth tarp enclosure that shields the noise from the backyard from going up.
Okay.
And the interior dining room space has been soundproofed by Mr. Aktas, the previous owner. That was
Is
done
there a
5 years ago.
separate sidewalk cafe in addition to the backyard?
No, there is not.
Okay, great. Questions from the committee?
Ms. Tillary, does the backyard face any residential buildings?
The backyard is within the property line, and it is there's a double door entrance from the main dining room into the backyard.
Right, but are there any residential buildings on either side of the backyard or any upstairs neighbors? And has the applicant spoken with them about the establishment and the liquor license?
Yeah, and the building itself is a mixed-use building, so yes, there are residential tenants above the restaurant space, and they were notified about the application, and all during the years of operation of the previous owner, there had never been any problems with noise or any other types of complaints from the residents above the restaurant.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee? Mr. Varela?
Any noise complaints or any sorts of complaints on record for this establishment?
Church, do
No,
we have
they're not.
anything? Okay, Ms. Church is shaking her head, and the applicant says no. Any other questions from the committee?
The application says 5 people, employing 5 people. Is that correct, or is that did I misread it?
Isaac, is that the total number of employees that you have for your dinner service?
Yes, that's the total that I have for my dinner service. Because of the pandemic, we used to have more, but because of that, we can't afford to be able to have everyone on board until things really open up. But for now, yes, it's 5.
Okay. Any other questions from members of the committee? Hearing none from the committee. Any questions from members of the public for this application? This is 87 Lafayette. Use the raise your hand feature in Webex if you have a question. Okay. I'm not seeing any questions. Does anyone on the committee have a motion for this application?
I offer a motion to approve.
Okay, motion to approve, Ms. Cobb. We have a second? Second, Ms. McKnight. Discussion on the motion. Yeah, I don't see any discussion. All right. I will call out everybody's vote now. Mr. Varela, how do you vote? I did not get you. Okay. Ms. Thurston?
Approve.
Ms. McKnight?
Approve.
Ms. Cobb?
That's something different. Approved.
Mr. Andrews?
Approved.
Okay. I also vote to approve. Thank you very much. Next up this evening, we've got 445 Gold Street, Miznon.
Michael Kelly representing Miznon. Also on is the owner Moshe Ziv. This is an on-premise liquor license application for Miznon UWS LLC. They'll be doing business as Miznon Dekalb. We're at 445 Gold Street in the lower level of the food court. We're taking over a space that was previously occupied by Fortina. They had an on-premise liquor license since July of 2017. We're a full-service Mediterranean, Middle Eastern food restaurant. Moshe currently is on 5 other on-premise liquor licenses, 3 at the Chelsea Market in Manhattan. One of them is called Miznon. It's been licensed almost 2 years. Another Cream Line, licensed almost 3.5 years. The Chelsea Music Hall, licensed almost 2 years. Bargonzo at 511 9th Avenue, licensed about 4 years. And another Miznon at 161 West 2nd Street, licensed about 17 months. Excuse me. We'll have the same seating setup as Fortina did, 30 tables with 122 seats and a 20-seat bar. Our hours of operation will be 12 noon to 8:30 p.m., 7 days a week. There's no outdoor seating. There's background music, and we may have an occasional DJ. It won't get out of hand because the landlord wouldn't allow that. There'll always be an owner or a competent manager on site. In conclusion, they'll be hiring about 25 to 30 employees, which we'll hire mostly from the neighborhood. And the owner would be asking for guidance from CB2 on how to go about doing that.
Sure. Well, thank you, Mr. Kelly. I'll ask Mr. Varela to give our guidance in just a second, but just to confirm, this is the location in the bottom of the City Point food court in the Dekalb Market Hall that it's in the basement of the location and it's not facing any residences or anything.
That is correct. There's no residents in the building.
Okay. Mr. Varela, do you want to provide our advice on?
We're kind of in a rough spot here because we lost the community center at Ingersoll, if that's correct, or the employment place. That's what Tanya reported last week. And Fort Greene SNAP is currently, although I just saw the doors open the other day. Anyway, I guess the long and the short of it is, could you reach out to Carol Ann, and I will contact Carol Ann tomorrow to come up with, or to just confirm that we still have list of contacts?
Yes. And the owner's been doing some outreach in the area and trying to get some of the people that did work at the other location. A lot of them were also from the area.
Mr. Kelly, can you confirm whether it's 12 noon or a 12:30 start time? The application says 12:30, but you said.
Yes, I'm sorry, it is 12 noon.
Okay, would you mind amending the application then?
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
I will send it to Carol Ann.
Okay. Any other questions from members of the committee? Hearing none. Any questions from members of the public about this application? 445 Gold. Use the raise your hand feature in Webex if you have a question. All right, I'm not seeing any questions. Do we have a motion for this application?
Motion to approve.
We have a second? Second from Ms. Cobb, motion Ms. Thurston. Discussion on the motion?
No discussion, but I would like to note that the cumulative number of potential jobs from the applicants thus far is at 105, which could make a real dent in local unemployment if in fact we do hire locally and from the areas which most need it.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Varela. Yes, we would encourage that and really, well, it has no bearing on the vote. I ask you to consider that and the importance of it. It's something that is critically needed in our community, particularly at these times. Okay, I'm going to ask for everybody's vote now. Ms. Thurston, how do you vote?
Approve.
Mr. Varela?
Approve.
Ms. McKnight? Ms. Cobb,
Approve.
Mr. Andrews,
Yes.
okay, and I also vote to approve. Did I ask you, Mr. Varela? I think I did. Okay, he's nodding. Okay, great. All right, thanks. I'm going to move on to the
Thank you.
next application. This is our last full on premise, 673 Atlantic Avenue, Simpson Bar and Restaurant. We have somebody here from this. .673 Atlantic Avenue.
Mr. Chair, I did not hear from them after sending them documentation for tonight's meeting.
Okay. We will mark 673 Atlantic Avenue as a no-show for now. If they turn up, we will hear from them. This moves us along in our agenda to the renewals. The renewals tonight consist of 99 South Portland Avenue, Fradel, 215 Court Street, Joya, 395 Flatbush Avenue, Applebee's, 860 Fulton Street, Belli, Osteria, 81 Dekalb Avenue, Smashburger, 505 Myrtle Avenue, Pete's. Ms. Church, have there been any complaints or concerns about any of these locations? And I guess I might be a little particular about that Applebee's location because I recall there have been some incidents there over the past few years. Ms. Church?
Hi, I don't recall anything at Applebee's.
Okay.
There might have been something at some point in time, but definitely not recently.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else on the committee have any concerns about any of these applicants? Not hearing any. Any members of the public for the applications for the items I just listed, just raise your hand if you have a comment about them. These are renewal applications and they consist of 99 South Portland, Fradel, 215 Court Street, Joya, 395 Flatbush, Applebee's, 860 Fulton, Belli, Osteria, 81 Dekalb, Smashburger, and 505 Myrtle, Pete's. Any comments about these locations?
Just want to quickly note that Fradel, I believe, is not an L. It should be an I. It's Fradel, I think.
Okay. Well, Fradel or Fradel, it's at 99 South Portland Avenue. From my internet research, you appear to be correct, Mr. Varela. So, Fradel is the correct name. I'm not hearing or seeing any public comments or questions about the renewals. Can we get a motion to approve the renewals?
Move to approve.
Mr. Varela, second?
Second. Oh, Okoso had it.
Okay, we'll give it to Ms. Cobb. Any discussion on the motion? Okay. Can I just see by a show of hands all in favor? Okay. Mr. Andrews, how do you vote?
It'll work. I'll go with it.
Okay. So we've voted to approve the renewals. Thank you very much. Just want to take this a little bit out of order. I'm going to go to the minutes from our last meeting of September 3rd, 2020. September meeting. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from last month's meeting?
I offer a motion to approve last month's meeting.
Okay. Ms. Cobb, can I get a second?
Seconded.
Second from Ms. Thurston. Any discussion? Not seeing any. Can I see a show of hands for approving the minutes from last month's meeting? Ms. McKnight, you might want to abstain if you're not here. Okay, you abstain. Mr. Andrews, how do you vote? Mr. Andrews?
Yeah, I was. Yep.
Okay.
I go vote. Go ahead.
Okay, so we've got a unanimous vote on the minutes from last month's meeting. All right, I'm going to now move to the next part of our agenda, which I'm sorry to skip over it. I just wanted to get through the minutes really quick. Do we have Miss Rodriguez on the line from the Tillary Hotel?
Hello, good evening. Yes, you do.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for joining, and thank you for waiting to speak. And I recognize we have several members of the community here as well. Ms. Rodriguez, forgive me for a moment. I do appreciate you coming to our meeting. I just want to go through some of the background from our committee's perspective about the Tillary Hotel and the liquor license there, because we've had a bit of a history in that we've had, I believe, 4 prior meetings on this subject.
Okay, not a problem.
So, for everybody's recollection, this all started on September 2nd, 2015, when we had Mr. Carlos Garayas and David Gibber appear on behalf of the Tillary Hotel, and we had a discussion about the initial liquor licenses, which were approved with no community comment, and I don't believe there were any community representatives there at that meeting, by a motion of 9-0-0. This included the beer garden that has been the subject of much of the discussion over the past few years, which was stated to close at midnight every night at the time of that application. When we had spoken with Mr. Garayas and Mr. Gibber, we were under the impression that there were no neighbors that were impacted by the beer garden, as I believe that was their representation. In the years that followed, particularly in fall 2017, we became aware of 82 complaints that had been filed with 311, and I believe we received some contact from our city councilman about the number of 311 complaints, and a letter was sent to the Tillary Hotel's attorneys in October 2017, asking them to appear at our meeting on November 1st, 2017, because there was a renewal application to be considered. November 2017 came around, and we heard from Vanessa Vitale and Stephen Traub this time, who advised us that they had been very busy, that the hotel had was a very stressful and hectic environment, and there were also a number of members of the community who came to that meeting and voiced their concerns about loud noise and inability to get an understanding with management about how the complaints were addressed. So after we had that meeting, and I recall that meeting vividly, Ms. Vitale and Mr. Traub agreed that the speakers would be removed from the beer garden and that there would be no more amplified music, only acoustic music that would be played out in the beer garden. And we had asked the hotel to come back to our June 2018 meeting, in addition to the residents, for a status update. On those conditions, we approved the renewal application by a margin of 5-0-1. June 2018 came around. We had a complete meeting, and I remember this one. We had the residents came to this meeting, but I guess the hotel did not come to the meeting. It seemed like there had been a change in management since the prior meeting. But the residents told us that there had been a party with loud music, and that they had also spoken with the new management there, who had told them that they would not use electronic music there in the future. And they cited some concerns about an upcoming event that was supposed to have a band, but they had a conversation with the management who said that it would be an acoustic guitar and with no electric amplification. So that was that was the last meeting that I was at on this. But in fall of 2019, it seems that the owners that were previously of the Tillary Hotel, the Chitrit Group, sold the hotel to a real estate developer, Isaac Hager, and subsequently we had a liquor license where, unfortunately, I was not at this meeting in October 2019, where we heard the transfer of the existing liquor license. This time it was Elke Hoffman and Aaliyah Huey who attended the meeting on behalf of the Tillary Hotel and presented this transfer application. Once again, we had community members attend the meeting and express similar concerns regarding music being played from the second floor beer garden and an inability to contact management. So at that meeting, the committee reached an agreement with Ms. Huey and Ms. Hoffman where there would be no background, no DJ, no live or acoustic sound on the second floor, indoors or outdoors, or any other amplified sound, and the outdoor location would close at 10 p.m. This was memorialized in a letter that the board office sent to the State Liquor Authority as well as to Ms. Hoffman. Subsequently, we did not hear anything that I'm aware of as a committee until fall of this year, when we learned there had been a complaint about music being played from the second floor on August the 24th. We heard about that at the last committee meeting, and that led to me asking to see if the hotel could come to this meeting so we can have a further discussion to try to understand how we can try to achieve a more agreeable situation for everyone involved. I think we're all cognizant that the COVID-19 has hit us all pretty hard, and we need to try to find a way to all work together the best way possible as a community. Subsequently to that, we have learned that there appears to have been some kind of foreclosure action going on with the hotel, and there might be some kind of sale that's coming up this month. There are some media reports about that, but that's about all I can say in that regard. And then we were further alerted to an incident where there was some loud soca music being played on September 23rd, 2020. And this was apparently coming from the beer garden, and the residents had shared that with us. So those are all the facts that I'm aware of from a big picture. I recognize there are a lot of nuances in this process. I guess I would want to ask Ms. Rodriguez first to sort of give her point of view about what the hotel's sense of these facts were, whether they were aware of these agreements that we've had with other people who've come before us in the past, and what, if anything, do they plan to do to try to work on a more agreeable relationship with the community in the future?
Okay, so yes, definitely. First, I'd like to thank everyone for allowing me to participate in this meeting. I do apologize that I don't have a video up as everyone else does. But yes, to touch base on your point, so I started working as the food and beverage events manager. In September, I came with the new owners. I was briefed on the stipulations that the last general manager confirmed on with the community board, but it wasn't fully, detailed. So with that being said, as you guys know, unfortunately, we're dealing with COVID now, and the hotel closed in March. With that being said, also we furloughed most of the hotel staff, and recently were able to bring them back as early as August, hence the first complaint that you received on the 24th. At this particular point, I kind of am a little bit overwhelmed because, I am trying my best to follow the policies and mandates of the city, respect the community, as well as, I was able to bring back some people. I myself got my job back. I was able back to bring in some staff. I brought back my kitchen staff, and, some other members of the food and beverage department as well. So I'm just trying my best to kind of keep things afloat. I did receive some complaints from the front desk from some of the residents as well. I did have a couple of officers that came by to discuss, the complaints with me. I have even had, some officers kind of come by to discuss the number of complaints that we were receiving. I've even gotten some feedback that they felt like, we were kind of being like under the attack in some kind of way. And, me being someone that just resumed this position in September, it's kind of everything's unbeknownst to me, and I'm just a little overwhelmed. So I definitely appreciate the opportunity to sit with you guys to see what we can do, what medium we can kind of come to, so that I can keep these people employed. If I were allowed to have these weddings and these birthday parties and these bar mitzvahs in the ballroom or even in our restaurant space, I'm sure, we would not have any complaints at all. But because we're mandated to have an outdoor seated dining experience only, I'm kind of in a rock and a hard place. I would love some feedback, some advice on how we can go ahead and just make this work. Because like I said, I got my job back. I got some people back their jobs. We're trying our best to kind of make it work. We don't know what's going to happen with, this possible second wave that's going to be coming, especially with all these zip codes that the mayor and the governor just kind of shut down. Thankfully, we weren't one of them. But, it's just a lot that I kind of am dealing with. Right now, the food and beverage department is really what's keeping the hotel afloat. As you mentioned, with the whole foreclosure article that was put out and everything that you've been hearing, I know that the owners are trying their best to stay afloat with what they were giving post the sale. As you can imagine, they're overwhelmed as well. They bought a hotel in September, COVID hit, and now it's just a lot. So again, if you guys can definitely advise me, I'm pretty much at your disposal at this point. I don't know what else to do. If you guys have any feedback on how I can kind of keep this afloat and just still operate, at least until maybe we are allowed 50% indoor capacity where I can bring things indoors, which, and then also the weather is not going to permit me to have, any sort of an event on the deck anyway, because it is getting really, really chilly. So again, if you guys can advise me on what you think, how we can come to a medium, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. I honestly, hearing what you're saying, granted it was in COVID time back in 2017, I can't not but be reminded of Ms. Vitale's statements to us, because she too expressed that she was overwhelmed with experience back at that time. And I think we can certainly offer some feedback, and I will welcome some comments from the community as well on this. I'm going to ask everybody to please take it a little bit slow, because our secretaries had to depart for the rest of the meeting. So I'm trying to, I'm going to have to double dip and be both chair and secretary for the remainder of this. But I think at the first point, Ms. Rodriguez, it would be helpful to understand what's going on right now. Like, in terms of the hours for the outdoor area, it was our understanding from the 2019 meeting, originally 2015, we were understanding the outdoors closing at midnight. As of 2017, I believe it was still midnight, but as of 2019, we had agreed on 10 p.m. for the outdoor area because the complaints had persisted. Is that still the case, or is it closing later than that?
Currently, we do follow the mandate, and we stop serving alcohol and food at 11 p.m. There has been times where we had a bar mitzvah and we had 2 weddings that exceeded the 11 p.m. hour where the food and everything else was done by 12, as well as music, but we don't go past 12, the latest, and I really try hard to not go past 11.
Okay. Thank you for telling me your opinion on that, and I greatly appreciate the feedback that you're providing. I think from here, I will invite questions from the committee and from the public, but I think from the first instance, I would just say it's probably going to be not. Let me just say this: when we heard this application in 2015, there was absolutely no concept that this was a space that would be used for weddings or bar mitzvahs. And I don't think we want to say no weddings or bar mitzvahs necessarily, but I'll let the committee and the community speak for that. But I think at a minimum, and I'm not saying this is how it has to be, but at a minimum, we do not want there to be music on the outside area, period. Is that something that the hotel can do, given that it's something that the hotel's agreed to do twice before with our committee?
Well, that's why I'm asking if there's some type of a medium that we can find, at least until we are allowed the opportunity to have indoor dining. My hotel guests have nowhere to go. When they want to sit down and eat, they have nowhere to go, and it's really you can't have a dining experience with at least some type of a background music, some type of something happening. So I think that's why I'm just necessarily trying to bridge the two and kind of merge it and just try to figure out a way to offer my hotel guests an experience, because we still are a hotel and we still want to offer you guys experience, especially with everything that's happening in COVID. We have people that come here and they just need a staycation. They just need a chance to just stay in a hotel in a nice comfy bed, go to the bar, have a cocktail, and they want to have that experience. They enjoy the music, I have a lot of people from that live on Duffield that come in and actually sit down and relax. It's kind of like it's very weird. I have a lot of people in the area that kind of come. I'm just, again, trying to accommodate and offer an experience to my neighbors, as well as, but more importantly, the hotel guests that really don't have the option of having indoor dining. We don't offer breakfast anymore. We don't offer the complimentary snacks that we normally used to do. Everything is out of the bar. So I, again, just want to figure out a way that we can maybe have music, but if it's a situation where there's only a specific type of music I should have, or maybe you want only jazz and not like maybe hip hop, or not soca, because I heard soca was mentioned earlier. Like if there's something that we can maybe figure out.
I honestly, Ms. Rodriguez, a lot of the applications that we hear and a lot of the concerns that we hear in a community are from new applications, possible noise, concerns from community out of fear of something coming to the community. But this is a situation where we're on our 5th meeting and we've had agreements with other people from representing the establishment in the past where it's been agreed that there will be no music, and there is music. That's the situation that we're in. I kind of feel, and I'm going to let other people weigh in for a minute here, but I kind of feel like the starting point here is actually having no music on the outside, period. I really feel like that's probably the starting point, because, we've said no music inside or outside. We've said close it at 10 p.m., and I understand that that's the business, that we're in a difficult time, but this is a situation where the committee and the community has been very tolerant by consistently voting to approve these applications in the past, by consistently being respectful of the applicants who come in and or the folks who've come in and represented themselves from this hotel. And we're at a point here where the message and the actions that we're seeing from the hotel are contrary to what has been promised to us in the past. So right. I feel like that would be the place to start. But I'm going to ask for, if you can forgive me for 1 second, I'm just going to ask if any of the members of the committee had any questions. Mr. Varela?
Just want to clarify something that, sorry, the name has disappeared, that Ms. Rodriguez said earlier. is the dining experience, are you speaking specifically for these parties? I see the argument, not that I'm agreeing that Brandon, I appreciate your point. I see the argument that for a wedding or bar mitzvah, there should be music, but if your hotel guests are having dinner, I mean, there are all sorts of restaurants open up and down the streets now, cafes. I don't hear any music and they're enjoying their meals just fine. So I don't see the argument. I don't buy that every meal needs to include music. And I wonder if that's what you were arguing, that your hotel guests, you feel at a bare minimum they should have music during their dining experience. My follow-up question is, and this is really maybe from one of the representatives of the community, on the nights where there has been no music, is the volume of the diners or the people outside still prohibitive? I mean, is it still sort of unmanageable, or is it just about the music? So maybe first question for Ms. Rodriguez, and then some maybe.
Can I speak? I can speak.
Yes,
I can ask.
Mr. Salazar, I'll definitely give you a chance to speak in just a second. I want to try to keep this in sort of an orderly fashion here, and we will give you an opportunity to chime in, absolutely. Mr. Rodriguez, do you want to respond?
Yes. So yes, I can agree with your point. Maybe not every seated dining experience needs to have music. I can definitely agree to that point and imply that. I just want to say, for example, this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we do have 3 events. On Friday, we do have a birthday party that's taking place. Sunday, I have a wedding, and on Saturday, I have a pop-up shop experience. What I can do for this weekend, and I will definitely relate this conversation to our general manager and everything, but for this weekend, I can maybe, of course, have no music at all for the Saturday event, but for the birthday party and the pop-up shop, that will be and the wedding, that will be kind of difficult to to inform the client on that. Also, case in point with our seated dining experience, I had a wedding party that booked 25 rooms last week. They went and did a quick city hall wedding, and then they came back and just asked that they can kind of come back. They wanted to bring their own speaker and sit on the deck and just kind of celebrate, the fact that they just got married during COVID. And, I understand all of my hotel guests. I understand how stressful this year has been. And me being a hospitality person, of course, wants to accommodate that. And it just, it worked out where we had music playing and they had a very, very lovely experience. So, again, I'm just trying my best to figure out a medium to make all of this work, because in a normal circumstance, everyone would be inside. I have a ballroom that holds about 300 people. I have a very, very beautiful restaurant space. I'm not sure if anyone has seen it. But under normal circumstances, this would not be the case.
Okay. Did any other members of the committee have any questions for the applicant? I'm sorry for Miss. I'm sorry, my nomenclature is stuck in that manner. Ms. Cobb?
Yeah, this is not a question, it's kind of a statement. While I appreciate the difficulties that the establishment may be having, the residents here, we talked about this before, and the residents is having some difficulty. They're uncomfortable. It is an intrusion and an imposition. And so I have some concerns about that. I understand her position, but this is the community. And I'm very much concerned with what they have to say also. In as much as we talked about previously about the music.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Cobb. Did any of the other members of the committee want to comment? Okay, I'm going to give some members of the public an opportunity to comment here. I've got Patty Evers.
Brandon, I have a comment.
Okay, hold on 1 second, Ms. Evers. Mr. Harrison has a comment. As a member of the committee, I'm going to give him an opportunity to make his comment, and then we'll go to Ms. Evers.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I just want to let my fellow committee members know, and yourself, as well as Ms. Church, that including what the representative from the entity said tonight, and to the meetings that you already very succinctly summarized what was sent us, and having reviewed what is sent us, I honestly don't think that it's a good fit to have this beer garden have any kind of music. And I just, I'm taking a very dim view of anything that would get close to that because of the history that's been there. This is a location in which not one, not two, but as evidenced by one of the packages, or I'm sorry, one of the things that Ms. Church sent us, and one of the things that you summarized, Mr. Chair, at least 3 former and 1 current, unless he's off the board, members of this board have had issue with this address. And although I don't think it's being a drama queen for me to say that many of my current and former committee members know me to be very pro-business and, you know, try to support the businesses and, you know, let's lean towards the businesses. I am not leaning that way. So I thank you for letting me say that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. I'm going to allow the members of the public to have an opportunity to comment. We're going to try to, granted, we've had probably I would say we've had some of the most respectful and engaging conversations with this particular community in the past. So I'm not so concerned about this. I would ask, as I do in every one of these circumstances, for everybody to try to keep your comments under 2 minutes and just to the point, and don't try to repeat something that somebody else has said. But we are here to hear what you have to say. So would be interested to hear, and we can start with Ms. Evers.
Thank you. A couple of points. I live in the building right next door to this beer garden. It's like 10 feet from my patio and the one wall of my apartment. Oftentimes music in past events, like I can hear it inside with everything closed, with the air conditioning on. And that includes events that have happened starting in July. So I know it was mentioned that the first events were later in August. No. We filed complaints with 311, so those are on record. I walked next door. I called the front desk. I have tried numerous ways. I reached out to Miss Aaliyah's cell phone. She had given us that number. And heard nothing back. This has been going on since mid-July. And there doesn't appear to be management on the premises to follow up and to and they don't follow up during business hours. I've been told they're not even there during business hours. And it's not my problem that the front desk may not be able to track the management down. That's a business issue. I oftentimes don't even do the noise complaints until after 10 p.m. So the idea that they're not going until after 11 and until 12 is not true. And so those are all on record. That's the only reason I do the 311 complaints, because the cops can't really do anything about this. But I want it on record, and I want the times. So it's all there. And as the board asked, I reached out. Julia forwarded my email from mid-August regarding July and August complaints to the board, community board. And I have also spoken with Robert Harris, I believe, and had a conversation with him about this. So I followed through on what was asked of me. And it's frustrating. A week ago tonight, I filed another complaint because this was going on again on a weeknight. until almost midnight. And lastly, the idea that COVID is an excuse is frustrating because I would have been sympathetic if somebody had come to us in July and said, hey, we're suffering. As they start to open things up, is there something we could work out? But as far as I know, nobody reached out. Other than 2 weeks, I was home. The fact that we have to come back to the community board again and again and again, I don't trust them. And like, I have my own health issues to deal with. I have my own job stresses. To have to take on fighting just to be able to sit on my patio and have a conversation with a friend on a Sunday afternoon, it's not right. And that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ms. Rodriguez, is Miss Huey still working with the hotel? I'm kind of curious if about that, given that the resident was unable to reach her.
Well, first I want to address Miss Patty. I do want to apologize because I see you getting emotional, and that's the last thing that myself or anyone here at the hotel would want to occur to you. I feel a little, again, overwhelmed because I feel like you guys have been dealing with a lot with the hotel, and I literally just got this plate in September. So I do apologize if I didn't have the full knowledge of the history enough to know that I was supposed to come to you guys to ask and say, hey guys, we're in this really unprecedented predicament. Can we find some medium? So I definitely wanted to address that and let you know and apologize about that, Patty. Secondly, regarding Mrs. Huey is no longer with the property, but she does assist the new owners. She does assist the new owners when need be because they don't have a full-scale general manager as of yet, aside from the one who is assisting. So I do apologize if you weren't getting any contact with her, but that's possibly the reason why she's not fully on property. She is assisting the new ownerships, however.
Ms. Rodriguez, to what extent is management on the property at any given time, in your opinion? Because I think one of the concerns that has been proffered ever since 2017. So, and I really hope that you get the gravity of this meeting, because this is the only renewal application in the past 4 years that we've had to have a meeting like this about in the entirety of the community district. So I really hope that you grasp that. But I want to just ask, there's been like this overarching theme of residents who are unable to reach management. To what extent is management there at any given point? And to what extent can you promise and put in place a process where there is a manager on site every day at that location, where if somebody comes and asks the front desk about a complaint, they can speak to a manager?
So at the moment, and again, due to not having enough staff, we only have our front desk manager during the days, around like a 9 to 3 shift. Sometimes we have our financial controller who's also in, myself, the food and beverage director. I'm normally here during the evening hours whenever we have the bar is open. And then on the weekends, we have housekeeping manager as well as front desk manager. I will definitely relay this message and provide you guys with my direct contact information, as well as the front desk manager's direct contact information, so that this doesn't happen again. In the event that you call the front desk or you come by the hotel and they say there's no one on site or available to speak, I can definitely give you my personal contact information so anyone can reach out to me if necessary.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. I want to hear from some other members of the community who've asked to speak. And again, I'll remind everybody to try to be as brief but to the point, but we do want to hear your feedback. Mr. Juan Salazar. Mr. Salazar, I remember you from the prior meetings. It's good to see you again. You can make your comment.
Thank you, Chairman, for allowing to speak, and you're correct. I've been in these meetings before, not something that I want to do, but I need to do because this has been a problem, continues to be a problem, and as we heard from Ms. Rodriguez, will continue to be a problem because they have this event. And this is very fundamental. When they came 5 years ago before this very committee, they misrepresented. They did not say this was a residential neighborhood facing all these homes with long-term residents. And so started from there. And the agreement, and this is a company, this is a licensee who has agreed twice with their attorneys present. Okay, they have had representation. They have agreed first not to play amplify music. Again, the same thing that you already stated. And they do not keep their, part of the bargain. Okay, this is a residential neighborhood. The residents were here long before this one business came to be. Okay, and the COVID thing. We're all suffering from COVID. There are people that are working at night trying to sleep so they can work at home, and all this music is interrupting everything. So last time the same person, I'll give you your personal telephone number, et cetera, has not worked. That's the problem, that they just pay no attention to the neighborhood. They are, or the community board, because they feel all we're going to do is we're going to come back in 6 months. We're going to have the same sort of, everybody objecting, and they're making promises and being overwhelmed. We are all overwhelmed. And you know why I'm overwhelmed by? The noise and the music and the total disregard for the neighborhood from this business. This is a business. I will hazard to guess that the residents that speak in here, we pay more in taxes than this business would pay. Probably have tax breaks, et cetera. And everybody's saying they got to survive. Yes, they have jobs, but we all have jobs, and we got to keep our jobs. So I'm at a loss as to what we're gonna do now, because they're gonna have all these parties, and I think, as the other committee member said, they agree. This is a place they want, people want to eat. This is not a music event. And what they have is they have DJs, et cetera, et cetera. But I'll leave it at that. That this is just a broken record, and I have no confidence whatsoever they're going to adhere to any plan that I made here. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salazar. Mr. Vinicom's hand is up. I want to recognize him very quickly.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm not going to repeat some of the stuff that make some good comments, but we do have an agreement with the owners of the hotel, not with the management of the hotel. And Ms. Rodriguez, welcome to your job, and I hope you do very well there, and welcome to the neighborhood. But the fact is that Ms. Leah Yui is still part of that hotel. She's been to our meetings. She's agreed to this on behalf of the management. So the issue here is that I do not understand why it's up to the management to understand this, and it gets transferred from one person to another. This is the owner of the hotel holds the liquor license, not Mr. Rodriguez, not Ms. Yui. And this is blatant disrespect for the whole process. I mean, we have people on here right now, the community board people, they're volunteers, they work all day, they sit here, they do a great job. And I find it as total disrespect that the hotel owners are allowing this to go on. And now we just have new management, and they're overwhelmed, of course. Everybody's overwhelmed. But the fact is that we have an agreement with the attorneys and the hotel that there is no amplified music. It has nothing to do with Ms. Rodriguez. It's because she's managing it. It's with the owners. And Ms. Yui's been at the meetings. I'm sure Ms. Rodriguez knows who Ms. Yui is. And the fact is that we have an agreement that there is no amplified music. Would have been really a good point is that if we got to this point where you needed to do this to survive, you would have came to us, because you knew who we are, you know who the community board is, and came to us and said, and especially if Ms. Yui is working with the owner, she's very aware of this agreement. We need to do something. We need some help. Give us this, we'll give you a schedule. This is what's going to happen. So I have no trust in what's going on here at all. Because next time this hotel is going to come in, or it's going to come in for a renewal, they're going to bring somebody else in. This is what the owners. It's not with the management. So if this management is struggling and overwhelmed, that should not be something that the neighborhood has to put up with. And it is. We feel disrespected by this whole process. It's just blasting music. There's no way to stop it. The desk isn't helping us. And Ms. Rodriguez, I don't want to pound on you right now, but I don't think you're the right one to come to the meeting. I mean, this is what the owners of the hotel. This is a license. This isn't something that some kind of soft agreement we have with the person at the desk. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Vinicum.
Well, you know, sorry.
Ms. Rodriguez, I'm sorry, we're just going to have to wait for a few moments because there are a few other members of the community who would like to speak. Ms. Ibelli?
Thank you, Bill.
Ms. Ibelli, I believe you're on mute.
Can you? I'm a little
we can hear you
behind
now.
my technology. Thank you.
It's okay. We can hear you.
I have a few points regarding Miss Huey. She is still attached to that property. Even as yesterday, I spoke to Glomani from Councilperson Levin's office, and the councilperson sent a strongly worded letter to the hotel regarding this, and right away, Miss Huey responded to that letter. She does not respond to the community and the residents, but she did respond to that letter like, oh, you know, we'll try. But that's the same thing we've heard for many years now. In addition to just being a beer garden and an outdoor space, it is actually promoted as an event space that can accommodate 221 people. That includes 189 outdoor seats and 32 indoor seats. That space, it must be standing room only, because that space would not or should not have that many people up there sitting down. So it's just going to be lingering and drinking, and with the amplified sound, it's horrific. Which then leads me to there was a complaint filed and a warning was issued in August that the hotel was not in compliance with reopening guidelines. I'm not sure what has been done to remedy that or what the story is. So basically, my point is that through all these years, they have just made empty promises. Nothing has been done, and I do not see this continuing in a positive way. And to Miss Myrtle Rodriguez's point about maybe if it was different music, no, it doesn't matter what the music is. If you sing Ave Maria amplified at 10 p.m., people who are trying to sleep or trying to work at home, because we're all impacted by COVID, so please don't use that as an excuse, that's going to be disruptive. Last weekend, I don't know, you mentioned the type of music. I don't know what type of music was, but at certain points there was a DJ or MC just screaming into the microphone. And I am 1 block over and 1 block down from the hotel. So that sound traveled through several other buildings to get to me with the windows closed. So I don't want to reiterate, but I will say it's still a problem.
Thank you, Ms. Ibelli.
Thank you.
I'm going to go back to Ms. Rodriguez because we've heard a couple of comments at this point, and I have, at this point, how many other people? Not too many other people. I believe we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we have 5 more people, but Ms. Rodriguez, keeping in mind we are to try to direct the comments to the chair, did you want to respond to any of the points that the community members had raised?
Yes, I definitely want to. I want to bring to everyone's attention, as I mentioned, I acquired this position in September. I was informed about the policy of no electrically amplified music on the deck. That's what I was told. What I was doing is we have these really small speakers. We were streaming music. It has not been any complaints since I've resumed the role as F&B manager. COVID hit. Then we closed down for a while. As you know, DHS came in and we had a group in the hotel. And then luckily, which, you know, is a big factor in why Miss Huey is not with the property, she was not happy about it and about the way that the DHS group was taking over the hotel, the area. Obviously, she considered the residents as well. So that's a big part of the reason why she is no longer with the property. So to everyone's mention about Aaliyah still being associated with the property, she definitely does care about the hotel. This is the hotel that she opened up, and she does care about the employees. Case in point, I am someone that she okayed to hire. So I think her responding to that email was just her way of maybe being an additional armor for me because, you know, I am essentially new to the situation. But I do want to emphasize that she did essentially walk away from the property because the ownership decided to take in that DHS group, which, again, you know, I'm trying to avoid because if that group comes back, I lose my job, F&B lose their job, etc. And as I mentioned to you guys, right now, the F&B is what's keeping the hotel afloat. So I just wanted to touch base on that point. I definitely wanted to reemphasize to you guys that had I known the severity of all of these complaints and issues and broken promises that you guys are saying that you've been receiving since 2015, I myself, Myrtle Rodriguez, would have personally, you know, reached out to you guys and said, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. What can we do? But I was not fully informed of, you know, the severity of the issues. As I mentioned, I was just told no electrically amplified music on the deck. So, you know, and I was playing music inside of the bar and just having it lightly streamed out onto the deck. Again, this is just really extremely overwhelmed, and William, I do appreciate that your understanding of that, and I do understand that you probably think that maybe a general manager or the ownership should be here for the meeting, but you know, I'm the one that's dealing with this department, and I'm the one that's willing to sit here and speak with you guys and try to figure out something that we can do. I literally, you know, even if you guys can allow me until the end of October or even for the next 2 weeks, so that these weddings that I already have booked and 60th birthday party, I have a breast cancer, and I have a couple of activations that, you know, I would like to honor for these clients. I don't want to go to them and have to cancel it and, you know, kind of hinder their motivation in whatever space that they're currently in. If you guys can just allow me at least, you know, another 2 weeks, what the weather is changing. I do have 25% capacity that is allowed per the city that I'm trying to reopen our restaurant to allow that 25% capacity with social distancing. So if there's something that, again, I'm essentially begging you guys, if you guys can just meet me in the middle, and my birthday is on the 27th. Maybe this could be some sort of a birthday gift or something, but if you guys can just kind of meet me in the middle and allow me to just honor these activations that are on the schedule for the next 2 weeks, I would appreciate that wholeheartedly.
Well, I think our committee will talk a little bit more about it when we hear all the comments. Mr. Varela, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, I'll hold until the comment.
Okay. I believe Ms. Wallace was next. Vita Wallace, did you wish to make a comment? Okay. Ms. Wallace, you are on mute. Can you unmute yourself, please? Ms. Wallace, you are still on mute. I'm sorry. Maybe we will come back to you shortly. Okay. The next person on my list is Andrew Begg. Mr. Begg, do you wish to make a comment?
Yes, I do. And thank you very much for letting me address this meeting. This is the first time I've attended the community board because I just moved into the neighborhood just before the COVID lockdown. So I haven't yet attended any community meetings. So this is my first. I actually moved here from Manhattan, where I was the president of a block association close to Times Square. And we had Restaurant Row, West 46th Street, was part of the Block Association's jurisdiction, and we had a very productive working relationship with restaurants and bars, given that they are so crucial to that block. So I have sat through many meetings similar to this with renewals and requests for new licenses. So although this is the first time I've attended this meeting, the subject matter I've been through many times. When it comes to the Tillary Hotel, the discussion seems to be, as the representative from the hotel requested, that the community board meet in the middle, which implies that the discussion or the decision really is whether the license conditions should be a renewal with music versus a renewal without music, and there's a request to meet in the middle. But I actually agree with the chair that the starting point is actually no music, because that was part of the conditions of the license if you go back a few years. And if we're going to talk about the negotiation of meeting in the middle, it really should be a license renewal with a condition of no music versus no renewal at all. Those are the two ends of the spectrum of the discussion. And the reason I think the no renewal option has to be on the table is that if you look at the structure of the building itself, there is no way you can have music on that deck without it being broadcast into the block. This is a point that I don't think has come up in the discussion, but the structure of the hotel is basically a sound shell. If you imagine the deck, which is at second floor level, there's a high wall of the hotel on the southern end of the deck, and on the eastern end of the deck there is another high wall, and that effectively makes a concave structure that is like a sound shell that you have in parks, that any noise on that deck is then broadcast by the shape of the building directly into the block. And even when there is no music, the sound of people talking is amplified by the structure of the hotel. It's a real shame that the structure of the hotel wasn't picked up during the initial discussion for a license in 2015, because the architects could have put the outdoor garden on the other side of the building, on the Flatbush Avenue side. And that way, any sound would have been broadcast out into a non-residential block, basically towards the Manhattan Bridge, or over the park and the playground that's there, instead of the side of the building they put it on, which was directly into residential buildings. So there is no way you can ever have a viable music-oriented business on that deck without effectively broadcasting it, even with little speakers, directly into the buildings opposite and down the block. So the point I really want the board to take into account is the starting point has to be a renewal with no music at all. And I think that the no renewal of the license option has to be on the table. That's the comments I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. And just for everybody's awareness, whether it's fortuitous or not, we are not here considering a renewal application at this time. The license for the Tillary Hotel was last renewed in late 2019, and I believe it's going to be at least another year for them to come up for a renewal application again, unless they have a transfer of ownership. Mr. Varela?
Wait, were you done with your comment right now?
I'm done with my comment, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I just wanted to thank Mr. Begg for his position on that, seriously. And also to say that Ms. Wallace has written a comment, still having trouble with the unmute, and I would like for someone to read it. I'm happy to read it, but just so that everyone can see it. Is that okay, Brandon?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, so I suggest, she writes, I suggest that the hotel be allowed to serve guests with no music and rent the deck for events with no music. I wanted to let you listen in to what's been playing now, which perhaps Patty can do. in this moment, because Ms. Evers earlier said that there is music playing right now that they could hear, which sort of conflicts with what was being the position of the hotel earlier in the conversation. And I wanted to let you know that my wife, Margaret Quonzo, is considering suing a Tillary because we have no confidence in any agreement we might come to being honored by the hotel. Perhaps only a large financial judgment against them will make a difference. Thank you. And for the sake of, I realize that many other people want to speak, but I think Mr. Begg makes a very valid point where essentially I don't know that we should be negotiating for people to live up to the agreement that we've already made or that's already been established. And we should be talking about what we do within the parameters in Mr. Begg set up. So we could also reach out to the SLA, the State Liquor Authority. I mean, I don't know what they can do, but since renewal isn't on the table, but we could make our position clear that we don't support the applicant at this time, or the license holder.
You're correct. Mr. Harrison, did you want to make a point?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Farella, for those points. I just want to clarify something that is, I want to say this, that it's just as one committee member's understanding of the process, though I may be incorrect. So I'll thank you here to correct me when I state the fact incorrectly. A point that Mr. Begg brought up, or my fellow committee members, but in his very lucid and detailed conveyance of his position and bringing what he sees the fact, the only thing that should be stated, I think, is factually correct, that might be perceived as in deference to what Mr. Begg said, is this thing that he said, well, it's too bad we didn't sort of weigh in where this beer garden was, right? So I just want to put it out there, unless I misunderstood what he said, and then I apologize, Mr. Begg, but this committee, obviously, right, we don't weigh in on the design of a building, that's in the community board, but secondly, we get the baby in the net when it's delivered, warts and all. So I won't say it'll never happen, but for us to have a kind of a point of view, a venue is going to be never, but that generally isn't the case, because when an entity is coming to us for a letter of support to the State Liquor Authority for their license that they're requesting, generally speaking, the building, right, the space is already decided. So we can say we think it's not a good space, but we
Right.
can't say
We're not going to read it. We're not going to redesign the building. That's not going to happen. That's true.
right. And it's not an option for us because they're generally not coming to us when construction is happening. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Okay, I want to get everybody's comments in, and we don't have that long a list left of people to speak. Next, I have Ms. Karen Carrill. Ms. Carrill, are you on the line? Karen Carrill, I don't see her, so I'm going to move on. Quay Long, Quay Long. I see Quay Long, but they appear to be muted currently. Oh, here we go.
How are you doing?
Great.
I'm here. I didn't have much to say. I think everybody already said enough, and there has been a lot shared tonight, and we all are in, mutually have our feelings are mutual about what we have. But I probably wanted to just say, I've left notes. I've called the front desk, and they've told me they either would regurgitate what I asked them about lowering the music to the manager, and the management will either call me back tomorrow, but none of that ever happened. So I just, everyone else would say, I just don't have a lot of trust in the operations of the place. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Long. The final person that I've got is Travis Bartow. Mr. Bartow, do you wish to make a statement?
Yeah, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I want to call out a couple quick things. One, the irony of the fact that we could hear the music through the windows as we're having this conversation. And two, that I just want to call out, this isn't a rooftop bar anymore, right? That plays light music occasionally. This is a space that's being rented out to whoever will pay the money, and then they're allowed to do as they wish with the space with no management present. As the evening progresses, people play music louder and louder, they get drunker and drunker, and they yell over microphones, which is completely unfathomable considering we all came to an agreement that there would be no amplified music or noise of any kind in the last meeting. And then two, it's just like at this point, it's incredibly offensive, and I think it's just gross negligence on behalf of the hotel ownership. And I do understand the position that any sort of manager is put in who joins this company. And I recognize the fact that they're probably overwhelmed, but as a community, we've all been overwhelmed for years. And I don't live next door. I live almost a block away. I'm trying to work on a Sunday and I can hear a guy yelling through a loudspeaker. It's crazy to me. I can't understand how it's happening in a neighborhood and a community this small. That's all I have to add.
Thank you, Mr. Bartow. From the members of the community, was there anyone else who has not yet made a statement who would like to make a statement? I'm not hearing any other statements. I do see there's a point about the hotel has previously asked folks not to call 311 in the past. I recall that from some of the prior discussions that we've had.
Yes.
Can I say?
I just had one other question that I wanted to ask. Are you still on the line? Oh, there you are. In terms of occupancy, what kind of statements is the hotel putting out about the occupancy on the deck? And are you able to address the point about whether or not the hotel is actually playing music on the deck right now?
Right now, I do know that there is a television playing as well, and we do have Pandora streaming. Again, we don't have music on the deck, but we do have music playing from inside of the doors. As you guys know, I cannot have anyone inside, so there are people sitting outside that can hear the music that's playing from inside of the bar. And I just wanted to address Travis when he made a mention about there not being any management during these events. I just want to say I work sometimes 7 days straight because I'm here managing this, trying to make sure that social distance is being maintained, people are wearing masks, things of that nature. So I just wanted to clarify and let you guys know that I have been here. Sometimes I'm working 9 days straight because, I still have to do my administrative work aside from me managing these events. As you know, and as I mentioned earlier, we are extremely short-staffed as well. So I wanted to touch base on the fact that you mentioned that there was no management on the deck. And regarding to the gentleman that was on the microphone, we had a sip and paint on Sunday, and the gentleman did have a very small microphone where he was just directing to the guests, how to paint the structure or the abstract painting that he was having them paint. So I just wanted to touch base on that point.
Thank you. The other question I had was about the occupancy. What kind of statements is the hotel putting out about occupancy for the deck? How many people are out there on the deck at any given time? What is the occupancy of the deck?
So currently, we don't allow more than 55 people on the deck for seated dining. For large gatherings. But when we do our seated dining event, we do go up to 75.
So at no point,
our occupancy normally for the deck is 150.
Okay. All right. I've got I have the original application from 2015, and it says 140 for the outside deck, but 150, 140 is probably a small margin. And if you're telling me that I guess what I'm hearing is your opinion, and is that there are no more than 75 people on that deck at any given time. That's your statement.
Correct. I do pay for security to kind of ensure that as well. We don't let people up the stairs once we're at capacity. As I mentioned, I'm here for every single event, whether it's 7 days straight. So I definitely am here just to kind of make sure and maintain that. The front desk manager is very on top of that as well, because we want to ensure that our hotel guests feel safe and they don't see a million people just kind of walking upstairs. So yes, that is correct.
If any steps is the hotel willing to take to soundproof the deck in some complete capacity, like possibly put a covering over it, or ensure that there's no sound coming out?
I have definitely spoken with ownership and accounting and suggested that we do get a closure. That's something that they're strongly considering, especially because we don't know what may happen with indoor dining. So we are definitely working and trying to figure out ways to enclose the deck. But, you know, we have the new owners that purchased the hotel in September. COVID took a big hit. As I mentioned, you know, we did take that, the DHS group that did help us tremendously. So I'm just trying to assist the hotel in any way that I can to make them generate some form of revenue so that we can keep our staff, you know, don't have to close down, don't have to bring in another group, and can afford that closure so that everyone can be happy.
Okay, and finally, like from me at least, with the foreclosure sale and everything, what are the chances that we're going to have completely different ownership and people representing this hotel next month or the following month?
To be completely honest, I have not heard anything regarding that aside from just minor small conversations, so I could not touch base on that.
Okay. Mr. Varela, did you have a point you wanted to raise?
Yeah, I guess I'm just curious, and Ms. Rodriguez, again, I understand that you're here as a worker in this moment, and this is, and I feel bad that you are in the middle of this, and I know you're doing you're working right now, but this is, I'm just curious, what is, I don't see anything except to recommend to SLA to revoke this license, and I'm just curious, or to not renew in the future, but I'm curious about what, if any, of the events that you have planned can proceed without music? Can you operate? Can this place can the hotel continue its programming without music?
Unfortunately, no. All the experiences that we are offering that have been booked for the next 2 weeks, as I mentioned to you guys, if you guys would allow me that, they all have some form of music. There's definitely no microphones. There's definitely nobody that's going to be screaming. It's going to just be just a nice, relaxing vibe. But no, none of the events that I have a wedding, as I mentioned. I have a breast cancer event. I have a birthday party coming up. I do have another sip and paint as well. So those events all are, you know, around music.
And that sip and paint, for example, you're saying cannot occur without a microphone, without amplification.
Correct, because it's really hard for the person to project their voice with accuracy for all these artists that are really just trying to understand how to paint this particular whatever it is that they're painting. So the microphone helps them project, especially since we have everyone social distancing. So it's just for that as well. And again, guys, if you guys can just allow me, the weather is changing. I have 25. I'm allowed to do 25% capacity. I've been figuring out a floor plan. I've been working with my chef to just figure out what that experience can be, so that we can completely remove having everyone on the deck. So if you guys can allow me until, you know, the ending of this month, because I took deposits for all these events, and again, I don't want to have to go crush the spirits of everyone again and just let them know, hey, I have to give you back your money, I have to cancel the event, and then essentially shut down my department and, release my staff and possibly myself. So if you guys can definitely allow me until the end, until the after Halloween, I would appreciate that, and I can give you my word that I will speak with ownership regarding all of your concerns since 2015. Let them know that you guys want more of a presence or a respect from them. You want to hear more from them. You want more responses from management on site. I definitely will relay all these messages to them on your behalf. Of course, I want to give you guys my phone number so I can be the person that you're calling, texting, emailing directly, just so that I can personally know your concerns. Because as I mentioned, had I known the severity when I got the position in September, I would have personally reached out to the board to ask you guys, after we got our job backs post-COVID, to ask you guys what can we do to figure out this medium, since I'm I've been mandated to only have an outdoor experience.
Ms. Rodriguez, I'm not saying that this is my view, but I just want to fully encapsulate what you're offering just so that we understand. Are you suggesting that if somehow the community, the committee is okay with you, with your hotel holding these events that you've planned in the next few weeks and the accompanying noise that is associated with that, that you and the hotel will promise to never again have outdoor music on that deck or any sound from music that's coming out and going into the neighborhood?
I can assure you that if you guys definitely allow me that, I will personally promise and make it my duty to ensure that that never happens again. And in the event that there's God forbid, a second lockdown or second wave that hits, and in 2021 we have to come to this point again, I will reach out to everyone so that we can find a medium together, whether it's like only paints and sips, only weddings, no birthday parties, whatever that agreement will be. I can assure you that since I'm in the role now, I will definitely I'll definitely honor that.
Would you be willing to come back to next month's meeting so that we can check on what happened in the month of October?
Definitely so.
Okay. I want to just ask the members of the committee for their thoughts about this. And, you know, keep in mind, we don't have a license on the table. And we have, as a committee, we could take a point of saying, you know, on the one hand, we could write a letter to the SLA and say we don't approve of this license, but then we don't have a relationship with the hotel in the future, and I don't know what's going to happen in terms of how this is going on. On the other hand, we could maybe agree to allow some of these events, or just emphatically state our point about there being no music, and at the same time, you know, at that point we're looking at the fact that the applicant has promised over the past several years that they've agreed to these conditions, and what does that say? I just want to hear everybody's thoughts on that point, because we need to figure out an approach, and I want it to be representative of what we all think.
And if I could just briefly interject before you guys make your comments, there's this thing, it's called like a silent party, where you can have these headphones that you can put on where the music, if let's say there was a DJ, all the music will only be streamed through the headphones. I can also suggest to my upcoming events to kind of implement that, starting at, especially if it's like on a weekend or during a weekday, just to kind of figure out, again, a medium and something with you guys. Just try to build a bridge with this, because I don't know any of you, and this is my first time meeting with you guys, but I can probably make that suggestion where we can have these silent headphones implemented into certain events based on the type of event. Thank you.
Mr. Smith?
I'm sorry, I can't see who's...
Hi, Mr. Smith. This is Taya from the office staff.
Yes. Hi, Taya.
I have a quick question for Ms. Rodriguez. Ms. Rodriguez, I'm sympathetic to the financial impact of canceling events. I have a question for you. For each of your rental events, there is a required contract that is prepared between the paying client and the hotel. Would the hotel management be willing to prepare and share a copy of an updated event contract that specifically states that music will end by 10 p.m. at the risk of the event client losing their deposit?
I can send a contract stipulating 11 p.m. just only because of we're following the mandate of the city. I could definitely forward that, but just so you know, a lot of these events, for example, the sip and paint, we don't necessarily do a contract with them. What we do is call a food and beverage minimum. Because I understand everyone has a budget and not everyone can afford to rent out the beautiful beer garden at the Tillary Hotel. So I would implement like a $1,500 food and beverage minimum. You just have to meet this number, and then you are allowed to have your event and, you know, promote your brand or whatever it necessarily is, or have your wedding, or celebrate your birthday, or celebrate your retirement,
Yes.
or whatever the case may be. So there's no set contract, but I could definitely provide you with something if needed.
I'm very familiar with a buyout concept, and those typically are also contracted because you need to have some leverage to ensure that the rental client is going to actually meet their bar minimum.
Yes, so we don't have a contract implemented. We just do a food and beverage minimum, and I give them a credit card authorization form where I have their credit card on file. In the event that the minimum is not met, we just charge the card. So there's no contract at the moment.
Mr. Smith, I would just recommend to the committee, I'm not a voting member, but I would recommend to the committee as a former event planner that you perhaps insist from the owner that you are provided with an updated event contract that stipulates when the music ends and what penalty is meted out to both the client and the hotel if that doesn't happen.
Okay, thank you, Teo. Does anyone else have any thoughts on this from the committee?
Yeah,
Mr. Varela?
I just basically want to say, while I appreciate Ms. Rodriguez and her really wanting to work for the community, I think the problem is bigger than her. I think it has to be dealt with on a much higher level. I don't know the owner, I don't know the structure, but something needs to be done, whether it's building something, whether it's putting up petitions. But I believe we need to talk to somebody, an owner or somebody of the building.
Ms. McKnight.
And I agree with Ms. Cobbs that, I feel for Ms. Rodriguez that she is placed in this position that she's actually speaking for the owners. But I think a better way to go about this, and you mentioned, Mr. Smith, to have Ms. Rodriguez come back next month and discuss what has been happening with the residents and trying to find ways to work out these issues. But I think it would be better if we actually brought the owners back and had them speak to what are they planning to do, some type of mitigation, whatever, because of course I know I'm new to this, but Ms. Rodriguez can promise you everything under the sun, but if the owners don't agree to it, it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to be the same situation again.
That's a fair point. Ms. Rodriguez, are you willing to ask if Mr. Hager or anyone else representing the ownership of and particularly the owners would be willing to come to next month's meeting?
Absolutely. I'm actually very anxious to send them a meeting and speak with them once they come back from holiday. As you know, our owners are Hasidic Jews. So once they come back from their holiday, I definitely want to speak with them and let them know everything across the board, that I've been taking notes, and I'm just going to relay this. And of course, I will let them know that you guys want them to join me in the meeting, or you just want to have them as well by themselves here, so that we can all have this discussion. Yes, definitely so.
Okay. Mr. Varela, you wanted to add a point?
Quick question before I make my point. Wasn't the original agreement with no sound with the owners? Isn't that what Mr. Vinicom had said, that the agreement was with the owners, but that the community is getting the runaround from each successive management around this, but the owners had already agreed to no music? Is that correct?
Well, I could ask Mr. Vinicom to expand on his statement a little bit, just to understand that, just because personally, factually, I'm aware that Ms. Huey came to the meetings before, and we definitely had the legal representative for the applicant there. I don't believe any one of the Chetrits, who were the previous owners, came to a meeting, or Mr. Hager, I don't think I've ever seen at a meeting before. But to be fair, I don't think that they were ever asked to come to a meeting before. So, Mr. Vinicom, did you have a separate meaning that you meant? I thought you were referring to your our agreement with Ms. Huey and the legal representatives of the owners.
The applicant wasn't Ms. Huey. The applicant was the owners, right? They had representation by an attorney. Ms. Huey was just there to represent the owners. So we don't have an agreement with Miss Huey. We have an agreement with the owner. With the applicant, the license is with the owner, not Miss Huey, nor Miss Rodriguez. The fact is that we're being held by the feeling of the management team, and if they're not getting passed over the information, so the management team is just there. And I want to. I feel, Rodriguez, thank you very much. I mean, you're getting kind of pounded tonight with this because it's very overwhelming just to hear it. But the fact is, the owners have the license, not the management.
Right.
So.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vinicombe. Mr. Verhul? I'll go to you next, Mr. Harrison, sorry.
Wait, so can I continue?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so based on that and others, I again, the last time it was a very sympathetic position from the management last time. And I think that kind of swayed us thinking, okay, we'll give them a chance, they weren't aware. I could see this going on indefinitely, just new management, someone else, and I don't foresee that any of this, let's not have these types of parties, which are the bread and butter of this space, or something going to happen when people are trying to raise revenues. I don't foresee an investment in a bunch of equipment or in soundproofing, and as I've forgotten his name already, he wrote up the sort of unlikelihood of soundproofing working in that type of space. I think we need to proceed as if there is very little that they would be willing to do and that they're going to do, if anything at all. I mean, at the very minimum, between now and beginning today, well, turn off the music, but also this community should have been getting provided a list of events in ahead of time, just to know, just to sort of have an idea of when they're. I mean, I live across the street from Fort Greene Park, and every so often my life is disrupted by an event, and I deal with it. But it happens every so often. If that was happening, 3 nights a week, and it was happening well into midnight, my head would explode. I feel a lot of sympathy for empathy for the people in this situation, and I don't think that degree of negotiation is feasible. What we're proposing, that they sort of make these adjustments, I just don't see that they're going to come through on that. There's no.
Right. Mr. Harrison, you had indicated you wanted to speak.
Yes, Ms. I want to piggyback on what Alejandro just said. I agree with all of it, but in so stating, and what Ms. Cobb said, I want to something I said before we let I believe it was before we let Ms. Rodriguez speak, but it may have been before we let the community. I guess it was before the spoke. And with all due respect to Ms. Rodriguez, she is essentially an employee that does not have the final say. This body, but more importantly, the community that again and again and again, meeting after meeting, year after year, and about this issue, has rightfully because it's an issue. I wish Ms. Rodriguez all the best. History has shown this idiot that Ms. Rodriguez will be here. She will do her best to carry out her duties. At some point, it is likely from the history of this issue and this entity, this hotel, she will not be here. We will still be left with the owners. And whatever hard work he puts into finding this middle ground, or whatever words to use, ultimately, she is not the final authority, nor, as Bill Vinicombe has pointed out, is it really her responsibility to put herself out there and put her and her promise on the line, because she's the authority. In something that Mr. Begg pointed out, and I think I stated, I think respectfully, that we don't have a say in something when it's being built, is an obvious fact that it's not that you could hear a cricket go off, but the way that the building is designed and where this beer garden is, it doesn't take much. It's like having me speak. You don't need much of an amplifier. You don't need much amplified music. The sound will just go out. And when person after person during this meeting and during the previous meetings when we've had the community come out said, I live a block away and I hear the music. I live around the corner. So with all due respect to Ms. Rodriguez, I can't see mitigating factors of a canopy that would mitigate the sound. I can't see where promises of, well, we'll put on headphones is going to mitigate this, because ultimately two things are quite. One is that she was present during the noise that came recently. And as much as she's working very hard and trying to please a lot of parties, she has to keep her job, and she has to be mindful of the venue making money, but also that you can't control other people at some point. At some point, you can beg and require, you can make rules, but you cannot compel people who are not going to be compelled. The other thing that was reminded of both by my colleagues, but also by Bill and Juan and others from the community, is that in this history, in this long history of this being a problem, not once, in my view, taxes have been supplied to us over the years, not once has this ever come down to zero, to a place where the community is not complaining. And I, for one, and this has nothing to do with this venue, but I think I can speak to this. I, for one, where I reside, and noises that I cannot control, am very appreciative of the issue that the residents around this establishment find themselves in and have found themselves in quite. So just to wrap it up, it's what I said before. I have a very dim view of this being resolved to the satisfaction of the community with any measures that either Ms. Rodriguez or her bosses, the owners, could bring to bear, because I think it's a bridge too far. The span is too in the middle. Whether we take Mr. Begg's point of view, well, you start with this or you shut it down, or that, it's just, I don't think resolved unless we just say absolutely no music, which we've said before and people have agreed to and it didn't work. Or we just have at the next renewal, or in some letter to the SLA now, essentially have a position of no confidence in the owners, not in Ms. Rodriguez and her in the horrible pandemic that we're all dealing with, but just with their history, independent of COVID, independent of Ms. Rodriguez, that they have a history of not materially acting in good faith with the community. Point, I think you just have to recognize. Thank you so much, Ms.
Okay. So I think, having heard all of your perspectives and having heard from the community, I have an idea, and it's not a perfect idea, but it's an idea in a way that we can possibly proceed, because it's 9:14 and I don't think we're going to resolve this tonight, but I do think that we need to have some process to try to keep this situation under control, and or it's not under control, but to try to keep the situation monitored, and to try to keep all of the parties engaged so that we can improve it. So here's what I would suggest. I think the community has been crystal clear throughout this entire process that the message that should be sent from our committee is that there is to be no amplified sound from this outdoor area. I think the committee's been clear about that. I don't see any reason why we should depart from that, and I think we should communicate that as our expectation, because it's frankly what we agreed to and what the community agreed to in the past. I think aside from that, we should ask the hotel, and I think that they've been willing to provide this, to do a couple of things for us. One, ask them to come back to our meeting next month so that we can see what happened over the course of the month of October. Two, have the owner, ask the owner to come. Three, give the feedback from the community that has come from this meeting. And I think four, provide a copy of the contract that Ms. Teo mentioned in her comment in terms of the contracts that exist with the external parties. Five, keep in mind that, you know, in the world of music, what is really frowned upon in this circumstance are things that amplify the situation. DJs, people carrying on late at night past 11 p.m. Those are the things that I think we would really not want to hear happening in the next month or so. But if we can get a copy of a contract and a schedule of events, that would be helpful to at least have a mutual understanding about what's going on. From there, I guess I'll just ask the rest of the committee whether anybody has a agree or disagree with my thought process, and if there's anything to add or subtract from it.
I quite agree with you, Brandon. I think you said it all.
Anybody
I agree
else?
too. Brandon, I agree.
You're spot on.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Okay, I don't have to get everybody's ratification of that, but Ms. Rodriguez, are you willing to get us a copy of the contract and of for the third parties, as well as a schedule of events that are come up? Ask the management to attend next month's meeting and give them the feedback from the community from this meeting.
Okay, so what I can accommodate per your suggestions, as I stated, I have events taking place until the end of the month. With that being said, deposits has been taken. Some of the events are not events that anyone in their personal life would want canceled. Any weddings, any birthday parties, any breast cancer awareness events. So with that being said, I'm going to do my due diligence to make sure that the music is not extremely amplified, extremely respectful. I'm going to suggest the headphones as well. Definitely not going to have any DJ, but I'm going to figure out another way because, again, these events cannot not have any music. The contract, yes, I can definitely draft one and provide it for you because since COVID has taken place and the hotel is reopened, I have not done anything contract-based. I'm definitely giving your feedback. I will be drafting an extremely long email with all the bullet points that you guys provided since 2015 because, like, I want to re-emphasize I was not extremely privy to. So I kind of want to let them know that, hey, I was given, you know, a bag of bad apples and you want me to make apple juice and this is what I'm doing now. As far as coming back within the next month, definitely so. I'll speak with ownership to let them know that you guys would love for them to attend. I would even love to offer the deck as a location in the event that everyone is comfortable. If we can social distance, we can get out. I'll provide food, beverage, hors d'oeuvres, just so that you guys can meet me too, because I really don't even have my video. That could be another suggestion as well, and I will let you guys know prior. Maybe Mr. Smith, you can provide me with an email address or someone that I can contact directly. I don't know if that may be Carol, but someone that I can contact directly to confirm whether or not ownership will be present at our next event, so that everyone is just, you know, privy to this in advance. And I can definitely give you a list of all the events that I have for the remainder of the month.
Okay. I think one thing, there are a couple community comments which I thought were important to note, but one, thank you for your offer, but we're not going to meet on your deck. Unfortunately, we do appreciate it, but at the same time, given the seriousness of what we're discussing, I think, you know, it's best that we try to meet in a neutral forum and try to reach an agreeable solution. I mean, this is people's lives, and we're really we need to try to work out a solution that works for them. I just want to I want to follow up on a couple of points. One, you know, can you please communicate to the management or to the ownership of this hotel that it is the community's board's expectation that there is no amplified sound coming from this deck. I mean, that I'm not saying you have to agree with it, but I am saying, well, I mean, technically the ownership already did agree to it, so it's our expectation that they live up to that prior agreement. And I'm not going to divert from that point. I mean, that was the starting point, and that's the ending point in terms of our view on this relationship, because we've been down this road for 4 years, and I think that's really all we can say about. I can't force you to agree with it, but I can tell you that there may be a point in the future where this hotel will have a liquor license come up before us again, and we'll have the opportunity to obtain how we feel about that once again, and we have the ability to write letters to the state liquor authority. So I hope that will be taken into account, because we don't always approve every application that comes before this committee.
Yes, I definitely will relay the expectation, and again, I will try my best to accommodate.
Mr. Varela?
So as Juliet notes, in 2019, the hotel rep and the attorney agreed to no amplification at all on the second floor, including insides and stores open to the deck. I remember that conversation clearly. I am sorry, Ms. Rodriguez, but I don't see how in a month's time. So are you not going to schedule any more events next month? When we see you in November, will all of November and December be booked out? What if we have a warm November and a warm December? And so what's going to happen exactly? Are we going to? So I feel for the situation, all of it, for everyone. But at this point, it's just I don't see where this ends. What is the end point to the amplified music? When is that going to stop? Are you saying that it's going to stop after the breast cancer event? Is that the last amplified music event? Because that would be the day that your business begins to comply with the agreement that we made a long time ago. Up until now, you are in non-compliance, okay? And so it is not your fault, but it is the case.
Okay, so our last event that will have any form of a sound will be on the 25th. I completely understand that we're not in compliance, but I definitely want to reemphasize that this is the only space that our hotel guests have to have a dining experience. As you mentioned, we could not have any electrically amplified music on the deck or the doors open to the deck, but I can't have anyone inside. So this is why I'm literally saying to you guys, I'm like a rock in a hard place. I can't have them inside, and because the community does not want me to have them outside. So where can I have these hotel guests that want to get a beverage, want to eat their food, want to play with their dog on our nice little lawn, want to just have a moment with their family? I have no space to offer to them because I cannot have anyone indoors. As I mentioned,
wait, before everybody jumps in, before everybody jumps in, I don't think anybody's saying that the hotel guests can't come out onto the balcony. It's the issue is the music, and if the music is, it is possible for a human being to eat in a setting without music. That's the issue. That's where the community is coming from. It's just the music, not the hotel guests.
Correct, which is understood. So on the days that I have the dining experience, I definitely won't have any music playing, but I do have events and seated dining experiences booked that require some form of a sound. So as far as just, the seated dining experience, not a problem. We can just have the television on streaming the NBA playoffs, and we can have everyone just kind of talking. But as far as, these events that I have booked, which I will send to whoever needs to see it, the list of the events up till 10/25th, those do require some form of sound. I'm working vigorously with my team and the executive chef to figure out an amazing floor plan to accommodate the 25% indoor dining, so at least I can try to, again, figure out some type of way to allow my hotel guests to have an experience while not, disrupting the community based on the Harbo experience that you guys are saying that you had since 2015.
Mr. Chairman,
Sorry.
may I say something?
Mr. Harrison?
No, it's just Mr. Salazar.
Oh, Mr. Salazar, I know we took community comments in a second. Mr. Harrison did have his hands up. I didn't say no more community comments, but I'll give you one more community comment just after I hear from Mr. Harrison.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry about that, Juan. I'll be perhaps it's just Alejandro, but I don't think, with all due respect, Ms. Rodriguez directly answered your direct question.
Which one?
The one that was, where does it end?
I thought she said that it's going to end on October the 25th, that there's not going to be any more sound from there's not going to be any more music, there's not going to be any more amplified sound from any more events after October 25th. Was I wrong about that?
You were not wrong. That is correct.
Okay. Well, the other thing I have to say, Mr. Chair, Rodriguez is trying her best. And she did say something about sending, I heard her say, a rather long email. I would request, if she wasn't in it, that at the very least, the community board office via Ms. Church be CC'd on that email.
Which email is this, John? I'm sorry.
Ms. Rodriguez had said that she was going to be sending a rather lengthy email about, I was guessing it to her bosses, though I don't know that. I was suggesting that the board office and the church be CC'd on that email.
Okay. I mean, I don't think, I don't know to the degree to which I would necessarily agree, but I would ask Ms. Rodriguez, are you willing to CC a member of the board office on your email to the ownership?
I would be willing. However, I don't know if that's a norm in this type of a situation. I don't want to overstep or to ambush, for so to speak. So I think that I probably would not.
Okay, so you'd be willing, but you would probably not. Okay, I understand. Any other comments from the? Well, I did say I would go to Mr. Juan. Mr. Juan, did you wish to make a comment?
Yeah, I'll be brief. And I think the main comment that I agree with is, where does this end? Because we've been here again and again. And I just want you to note that when Ms. Rodriguez said the dining experience, and we have the television, and the I think some sort of game, the NBA games, that was a real problem too before. It wasn't just the music, but what happens is they have these huge speakers with the television broadcasting the games and all kinds of people. So because this is a venue where outside people, it's not the hotel residents that are making all these parties. They're just renting it and they do whatever they want. And I think we have to go back to day one when they came for the license. I wasn't there, and they said this was not in a residential neighborhood, which is a question that you have noticed you ask every applicant at their residence. And they made that statement in their application that this was not a residential neighborhood. So from day one, it's been a total disregard for the neighbors. And so the concern, and everybody has to, have a happy medium, etc. But at the end of the month, then we get the same story and nothing. There are no consequences. That's what the problem is. That for the last 4 years, there have been no consequences. The only thing has been you spend all day working, come to the meetings, and we, attend the meetings, and we get promises, and these are broken. So there's got to be something that has to be done. I mean, if the business is not compliant, they have a license, they have to be complied with, and there's got to be consequences for it, as opposed to just total disregard. And we go through the same thing again, because we don't need to. We should be watching the debate at the moment, a different debate. But
Yeah,
thank you for the opportunity to speak again.
No, I appreciate your insight, Mr. Salazar. I mean, I think appreciate that as a community board, we don't have the ability to necessarily impose consequences as in and of itself, in that we can't sit here and revoke the liquor license of the Tillary Hotel. But at a certain point, we need to try to figure out what's the best thing that we can do for the community. And I mean, in one circumstance, and certainly at a given point, it might be that we write a letter to the state liquor authority and say this is completely out of hand, and we're asking you, please, state liquor authority, the hotel will work with us. We need you to revoke their liquor license. But I don't want to go to that point because I don't know how much good it's going to do, particularly in the next 30 days, because one, we can't force the state liquor authority to listen to us, and two, in the next 30 days, the applicant will be able to do what we'll be able to do whatever they want in terms of they can stay open until however long their license allows. I mean, they should honor our agreement, but it's not so much that we can do in that regard. I think, and I really believe, like, the best way to work with this is to try to is to stick with what we agreed before. Make sure that it's clear what our approach to this was, because as a committee and as applicants, the hotel agreed to do these things, and we shouldn't budge an inch from that, because it was that was what was agreed, and what's going on now is literally something different. But at the same time, I do think it would be valuable to meet with them again next month and to get some insight into the things that they're doing there, even whatever they are, because having more information about things is going to put us all in a more powerful position. But that's my
Thank you.
thought.
I agree.
Mr. Does anybody else on the committee want to comment about this? Okay.
If I could make a statement regarding what Mr. Salazar stated. So the TVs, as I mentioned, for the NBA playoffs would be on mute. It would be just a form of entertainment, since on the seating dining days, I can't offer any type of a sound. So I just want to reemphasize on that as well. I also want to just say, if you guys can, I understand the frustration, but please consider again that this department is the department that is keeping the hotel afloat. At the moment, there's 9 employees that I brought back, which is including myself. Once the 25th comes, I have to essentially, in some form of way, if the mayor doesn't increase, shut down, the entire department, which might lead to the shutting down of the hotel, which might lead to the hotel bringing back in DHS, and just, no one here is going to be pretty much working that is employed by the hotel. So I definitely want to ask for a little bit of sympathy, consideration, and just, acknowledgement on that as well. I am the one that's standing here letting you guys know that I will try my best until the 25th to keep the levels extremely respectful. We normally don't open on Monday and Tuesday, but we do open the space for our hotel guests to have at least a breath of fresh air in some form, shape, or fashion. We don't sell any alcohol or food on those days as well, so please keep that in mind. And, I'm just trying my best to keep my people employed and not have to, furlough the entire department. And essentially the hotel. So I just would ask for a little bit of consideration in that manner. I know that you guys are frustrated since you've been dealing with this since 2015, but I acquired this position. I love this position. I love the hotel. I'm definitely interested in building a relationship with the community, and I will try my best to emphasize all of your concerns to the owners and definitely keep everything respectful until the 25th. There will be no extending past the 25th. You have my word, because I'll just figure something out at that point. I do not want to, have such a lengthy conversation about something that has been, promised to you guys again. So I can assure you that Mr. Salazar will not go into, or actually it was Mr. Valera, will not go into November or December if we do have a warm month or anything of that nature.
Right, and I think it's also the expectation that there's at least some manager on site, particularly in the evening hours, And I want to make sure that that point is communicated to the owners too, that there should be somebody there where if a community member needs to speak to a manager needs to be available to speak with them. And
Not a problem. As I said, I'm here at every single event, so I can give you guys my personal cell phone number. You can call me, text me, whatever you need. I will be on site. I'm the on-site manager during the evening.
Okay. Mr. Varela?
So I really appreciate that, Ms. Rodriguez. Thank you. And someone, Mr. Greenstein, if you can post your number in the chat, if you'd be willing to do that. I don't see how this business is going to change their business model from one month to the next if in fact they're trying to survive. So essentially, I think we have to prepare that between now and the renewal of the application, when we can vote against the renewal at that point, or between, even if we were to send a letter to the SLA tomorrow to revoke the liquor license, it's not going to happen within the next month. So I think everyone here needs to just accept that in the next month, they're going to continue to hold these events. And what are the 3 or 4 things or 10 things that need to happen in this 10th month to make it manageable? Is that phone number is helpful, I guess? Does the music need to come off instead of 11 at exactly 10? What needs to happen in this next month to make it feasible for you? Because it looks like it's going to happen anyway. Even if we did all the things, the most drastic things, it's not going to happen in October. But the events are going to happen in October, right? So are there other things that Ms. Rodriguez can do, like the hotel can promise in this next month that can make it more manageable for you? The experience?
I mean, honestly, I don't know. I mean, I certainly would want to ask any member of the community to answer that if they want, but I do want to note that I think, you know, it's equal to the point that, you know, the hotel may disregard what our expectations are for them in the next month. You know, there's no reason that we should ever expect anything different. So we should expect that they should honor their agreement. I don't care if this meeting goes 12 hours. I'm still going to come to that view because it was something that we agreed to. Ms. Church, did you have a point you wanted to make?
Yes, I'd like to. So we keep saying that there was an agreement with the hotel. There was not an agreement. This was essentially a condition of the license. And to my knowledge, based on the letter that's written, that is legally binding. I understand that COVID means that some things have changed as far as method of operations, and I don't know how it affects this, but we need to start from the point that those conditions in that letter are legally binding.
That's a good point.
Great point.
There is an option on the State Liquor Authority website that anyone can write a complaint directly to the State Liquor Authority about the establishment too. Mr. Vennicum, do you want to make a statement?
Yes, I think the point's well taken. I don't think we should agree on going out of compliance. Ms. Rodriguez is going to have to take that back and just say we're out of compliance, and she needs to make a different decision about that with the owners. But I don't feel comfortable tonight going and saying we're going to allow them to go out of compliance. That was them limiting fried sound was on the contingent upon us going ahead and giving them the okay on having a liquor license. So the fact that they're out of compliance, they didn't have.
Hello, John.
They didn't have the. They didn't come.
I gotta go. I can't do this at the same time as the meeting. I'm sorry.
So the fact that they went out of compliance without telling the community or the community, that's a problem. And I don't feel comfortable leaving this meeting saying it's okay to be out of compliance for the rest of the month. They got the liquor license contingent upon them not doing this, and they went ahead and did it anyway. And that's all I have to say about it. Out of compliance.
Okay. I agree.
So can we make a motion, Brandon?
Yeah.
Carol Ann, it would be helpful to know if when someone is not in compliance with the liquor, if they're infringing on the deal, is that straight to the SLA? That's what we would have to do? If so, then I make a motion that we file a complaint with the SLA that the business is not compliant with the license that we agreed upon, effective immediately, or that we do this right away.
Does anyone know how that applies post-COVID? Because again, I'm re-emphasizing that the only reason we are not in compliance because we have been in compliance since the hotel has been acquired in September and I got my position. I can assure you that there was no music from the months of September to December, and music only started after COVID and after we've been mandated per the city to have our people outside on the deck. So I just want to know if that is something that it seems like you are privy to SLA stipulations. Again, I don't know. Do you know if that's something that is included or will be acknowledged?
I'd like to second Mr. Varela's motion and say if we need to add a stipulation that there are COVID requirements we may not be aware of, we can, but that does not undermine, we can still make that motion, I think, and submit a letter or do whatever whatever form that needs to take, but I fully support that idea.
Okay. So to be clear, the motion is to write a letter to the SLA expressing our concern about the non-compliance with the terms of the existing liquor license that we most recently approved in October 2019. Is that correct, Mr. Varela, or is there something more to that?
Yeah, essentially to inform them that the business is not complying with the liquor license as it was granted to them.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Okay. Hearing no discussion, I will ask each of the committee members how they vote. Mr. Varela?
In favor.
Ms. Cobb?
In favor.
Ms. Thurston?
In favor.
Ms. McKnight?
I'm in favor.
Mr. Andrews?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Now, I know that music is an issue for us, but what are we gonna do when all this stuff has been contracted for, all this stuff has been paid for, the DJs, whatever they decide to do, has already been paid for, and if they cancel it or tell them
Mr.
they can't
Andrews,
do it,
I need you to vote on the motion. We're at a voting point in the motion. The discussion is closed, and we can definitely take your comments, but I need you to vote either yes, you're in favor of sending the letter expressing our view of that they're non-compliant, or no, you're not in favor of that. How do you vote?
In favor.
Okay. I vote in favor also. It's unanimous. We will write the letter. Okay. Ms. Rodriguez, I'd still ask you to convey the information that we discussed to the owners and invite them to come back to next month's meeting because I'd love to be able to speak to them.
That's not a problem. I definitely will relay that to them. I'll let them know everything. I'll let them know about the votes and the motion to see if they want to maybe do anything regarding that with the SLA directly, so that we can again just have a perfect medium. I don't think that the hotel wants to let go of the staff. I don't think the hotel wants to bring back the DHS homeless group. I just, we're going to definitely make this work. So I appreciate you guys' time. I appreciate you guys allowing me to speak and accepting me into this meeting today.
Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you to all the members of the community for coming out and spending your time at our meeting and sharing your thoughts on this in a respectful manner. I really appreciate that too. I just want to note, because we've had a lot of discussions over the years, mostly with liquor licenses before they actually go into effect. But this particular discussion has always been respectful with this community, and I really do appreciate that, because it's added to our ability to really zone in on what the issue is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to the committee members. We
Thank you
appreciate your
all.
time.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
And hanging in there for us.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Have a great night.
Everyone have a wonderful night.
All right. Well,
safe.
Thank you all. We're almost done with the agenda, and I'll try to keep it somewhat brief throughout this, but there are a couple of other things that we need to mention. We already did the minutes. We have the chairperson's report. So let me go super quick through the chairperson's report. One, I had the great privilege of attending a presentation from the Brooklyn Center of Health Disparities last week that Ms. Blackshear had promoted, and which was being hosted by NYU Langone and I think NYU Langone or SUNY Downstate. SUNY Downstate, yes. And it was a really wonderful presentation. Particularly, there was a video about Brownsville that was played, and about many of the things that our committee knows are real issues that we have that have impacted the public housing communities for years. Particularly, I recall they have 7 different public housing buildings in a very close space, and it's one of the most closely dense communities in New York or anywhere. And between that and the culture of over-policing, the culture of poverty, the culture of having lack of employment, the food deserts. I know we've spoken a lot about that in our committees in the past. It creates a system of stress, of constant stress that people live in on a daily basis that impacts them from like a fight or flight kind of context in terms of their daily life. I don't know. I'm not going to go into too much detail because of the late hour, but I used to coach Little League down in Red Hook, and I remember one of my players would tell me, he was like a 10, 11-year-old kid, that every day he got up, he went out the door, he feared he had to fight somebody just to leave his building. And it's a life that it's a context I can never imagine. But it seems to be like the same kind of stress that it was being got at by this video, which is and I think I'm thinking, what can we do as a community committee to really support the health equity goals that we have, as well as to combat this issue. I think maybe there's something we can add to district needs in terms of adding a maybe New York's, and this is just my crazy idea, so feel free anybody to shoot this down, but maybe Department of Small Business Services should look at giving grants to so-called B corporations that are aligned to as opposed to what traditional corporations are aligned to, which is promoting the goals of the stockholders or the owners. B corporations are aligned to promoting the goals of all community members, people who are impacted. I think like the Blue Marble Ice Cream Company is a B corporation. Seventh Generation is a B corporation, but any business that is a B corporation would be looking out for other community members. If we can ask like the City Department of Small Business Services to promote adding B corporations to areas surrounding our public housing developments, particularly in the areas of food and healthy food, because I'm not sure we're doing a whole lot with regards to healthy food with our current district needs statement. Maybe that's something that we could shoot for. Does anybody have any thoughts on that, or feel free to criticize me?
I love the idea. One thing I would just add, just because I've consulted in my past life on helping companies become B Corps, is that it just can be expensive. So I wonder if there would be something that we could advocate for that's like a grant program for, and support for applying to become a B Corp. If like a simple way I think about it is like a lot of small farms right north of the city are not certified organic, but they have all organic practices and they just can't afford the certification. Like, are there stipulations we could put in place that would say if they do these following things and elevate a social good in the same way they elevate value to their shareholders, then those should be more worthy of getting business with SBS or something like that. Obviously, that's a bigger process, but I think it's a really cool idea.
Okay, Mr. Varela, and then Ms. McKnight. Mr. Varela?
Sorry, I think Ms. McKnight was first. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'd be happy to defer to Ms. McKnight. Ms. McKnight?
Oh, well, thanks. Brandon, I give you credit. You're thinking outside of the box. And one of the presenters, because I actually went to the symposium last week, he was talking about thinking outside of the box. But one of the things that I heard presenter after presenter mention is that you can go to the community and find out exactly what they need. So I'm thinking instead of the corporation, maybe the grants can go to community-based organizations who actually know the needs of the community. But that's just my thought on it.
Okay, I think that's a fair point. That's a fair point. Any other members of the committee have any thoughts? Mr. Varela?
So this is sort of my favorite public health topic. As you know, this is kind of why I joined the committee, was specifically to talk about the effects of chronic stress on the body and the ways in which it affects everyone differently. So what you were saying, fight or flight is great in a moment for, a day before a meeting, before the birth of your child. But if it's chronic, it sort of increases the wear and tear internally in your body, right? So there are many different ways to tackle that, but really it's about control and empowerment within a community. How much control and power do they have to sort of piggybacking a bit upon what Ms. McKnight was saying. And that really requires some major upstream policies. As a case in point, Alaska is one of these states that, for all intents and purposes, should have pretty poor health. And for a long time, no one could figure out why it was that they were faring better on all sorts of health indicators. And it's because every single Alaskan receives a dividend check, the same dividend check at the end of the year based on the sales of the oil. This is an area I don't know particularly super well, but they receive a check because of the oil that they sell. So everyone gets the same check every year. It's a great unifier in amongst the Alaskan population. And researchers who have been tracking their health show that it brings down all sorts of barriers between Alaskans and keeps them healthier, which is why a poor country can be healthier than a country with a lot of sort of inequality within it, because everyone's in the same boat. So we live in a community where every other block you have poverty and every other block you have extreme wealth. And that's bad for absolutely everyone, including the wealthy people, which is why the 1% in the United States is unhealthier than the 1% in every other westernized country. We're richer, but we're still sicker. Even our 1% is sicker across the board. Anyway, I could go on for hours, but I did send that email after the last meeting with all of those documentaries that are all exactly about what Brandon just brought up. I really encourage people to take the time to watch at least one or two of them. They're all quite.
I did try to watch, but the links didn't work. So if you could just fix
good. I'll resend.
Okay.
I got started, Alejandro, but I need more time to watch those. I'm sorry. But I am aiming to complete them.
My 11th year of sending out these documentaries. I'll keep going. I'll do it for 15 years.
Okay.
This is very important for us to continue discussing. And I'd like to recommend that we, in one of the community boards, maybe the next one, take time to really talk about this in depth. And not now when it's almost 10 o'clock and the...
Well, I got you, Acaswell, but Ms. Church, don't we need to get the statement of district needs done like right now?
No, we don't. That's a joke.
She's laughing. She's laughing, but I want to know. I want to know what the answer is, because.
What did you ask? I'm sorry. What were you asking?
My answer is, if we want to add a district need, do we have to do it tonight, or can we wait till next month, or is next month too late?
Next month is too late. The deadline for submission is the end of October.
So here's my proposed district need, and anybody make it. It's that the City Department of Small Business Services provide grants to assist community-based organizations or B corporations with starting up focused on healthy food in areas proximate to our public housing projects.
Okay.
I'll put it in writing and send it to.
I agree with that.
Then, okay, if we're thinking about that, there's one other thing I want to mention, because Ms. Church brought it up to me before the meeting last week, and it is important. And that is, Ms. Church went to the city borough, the city budget consultations that occurs every year, and you got to love the city. They're cutting the sanitation department like crazy. Ms. Church, do you want to provide any more specific details on that?
Sure. I don't have the document up, but so they've cut litter basket collection, they've cut hazardous waste collection, e-waste collection. Some street cleaning was restored because that had also been greatly reduced. So I mentioned to Brandon that we should consider adding some of those services on our budget priorities. I will see if I can pull up the document really quickly to provide some more specifics on the cuts. But I think some of the cuts have real public health implications for us.
Yeah, the one thing that I thought really struck me is they want to get rid of the electronic waste curbside collection, and basically, if you do that, you're basically trying to strike a deal with the community that makes no sense, because not everybody's going to go to one of those fairs to get rid of their computer. They're going to find a way to just dispose of it in the trash. And I think it would be fair to say for one district need that we need to, the city needs to maintain its existing e-waste collection service on the existing basis that it has, and separately that we should also send a message that this is not the time for cutting back on collecting the trash and other basic sanitation services.
Oh, and one that is, I think, of particular interest to the committee is they've also eliminated some of the funding associated with rat mitigation.
That too. Yeah. So here's what I propose, and I'll do this in a motion so that we can be very clear about exactly what we want to add. I would propose that we add we can make it 4 additional district needs. One, the one that I espoused earlier about the community-based organizations and B Corps engaged in healthy food located near our public housing buildings. 2, continuing the e-waste disposal service that exists so that people can continue to do that from a curbside collection standpoint. 3, not reducing the services of litter basket collections and other sanitation services. And then 4, not reducing services associated with with rat mitigation because there's no science to indicate that the rats went away. So that's my motion. Does anyone second?
I second.
Ms. Cobb seconds. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Take everybody's vote. I see Ms. Cobb, Ms. Thurston, and Ms. McKnight have all said they're in favor. Mr. Varela, are you in favor?
I'm going to abstain on this one. I would want a little bit more time to think these through and compare to the other ones. I don't know if this in the long run dilutes all of the other ones that we'd already sort of agreed upon.
Okay.
I'm going to abstain.
That's fair. Mr. Andrews, how do you vote? Mr. Andrews, are you still there? Mr. Andrews will be marked as abstain because he's not answering. So I think that motion passes. We've got 4 in favor. I vote in favor. And 2 abstentions. Okay. Otherwise, for my chair's report, I'm going to have a conversation tomorrow with the New York Academy of Medicine, which is a nonprofit supporting health equity, with Ms. Church. And I believe our conversation is at early afternoon, like 3, something like that. Yeah. Yeah, something like that. So that's when we're having our conversation. If anybody is interested in joining, please just send me an email and I'll try to loop you in, just to hear more about what this organization's about. And with that, I'm going to end my chair's report. Does anyone have any other business to raise?
I just want to introduce myself.
Oh, wait, one second, Carol. I will absolutely give you a chance to introduce yourself, but that's the next section. We have to finish other business. Any other business from the committee? No other business from the committee? Oh, Mr. Varela, did you have other business? Mr. Varela is withdrawing his other business, and that's okay. We are now at the final point on the agenda, which is community forum, and we have a comment from a member of the community. Carol, would you want to introduce yourself and I perhaps state your last name, and we'll be happy to hear what you have to say.
Sure, very quick. My name is Carol Rubenstein. I am here on the behalf of Carol Ann Church. She invited me. I work for CAMBA, the non-for-profit service provider that is we're in the Aloft Hotel through DHS, serving homeless clients. So there have been numerous meetings that we have been reaching out to the community, Downtown Brooklyn Partnership, Carolyn has been involved with that. So I just wanted to come to the meeting and introduce myself. In fact, we have 2 shelters in the community. Opportunity House, which is a small men's shelter that's been there for 10 years on the corner of Tillary and Prince Street. We have a very small piece of that building. There's another women's shelter, but we don't run that. And then we recently moved into the Aloft Hotel because of COVID. So I just wanted to come here, hear if there were any issues, and we're always open to conversation and discussion.
Thank you very much. It's great to hear more about your organization. I'm sorry that you have to mention it at 10 o'clock tonight. I wish we had more time to talk about it with you, and I would encourage you to come back to another meeting of our committee to talk about it further, because I think we might have questions and other thoughts. And thank you, Carol Ann, for inviting me.
Sure, I could probably come to the meeting in November if it's okay on your agenda, and certainly can talk about Canva. Absolutely.
That would be great. Any other members of the community want to add a statement or anything to our meeting? Now is the time. Ms. Belli, are you mentioning? Are you do you
I
wish
just
to
want
make a
to say
statement?
thank you. I know this has been a long meeting, so thank you all.
You're most welcome, Ms. Belli. Any other members of the public want to make a comment? Okie dokie. At that point, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Varela, Ms. Cobb, we all agree. Yes. Ms. Thurston, do you agree also? You do. Good.
Yeah.
I got to assume Mr. Andrews does. But thank you all for your time tonight, and I hope you all have a great rest of your week.
Thank you very much.
Great job, Brandon.
Thank you.